times of the games. And, how do we feel about the 7:05 starts? 7:05, a bit late. And then at some point in the season, so basically how the schedule comes out, they have 81 home games, right? And how this lays out, the Rays will play 28 games at 7:05. They will play 25 games at 7:35, which that seems kind of late, 7:35. At least they've, I guess, sped up baseball a little bit, but those games are going to go close to 10:30. And I'm not a huge fan of that on a Tuesday and a Wednesday night, sometimes even a Monday. I don't want to stay up that late for baseball, but I will. They're going to have 9 games at 12:10 and then 7 games at 1:10. They'll have 6 at 4:10, which includes the opening day game, and then they're going to have 5 games at 1:40. Those games at 12:10 and 1:10 in the middle of the summer, I am going to be interested to seeing how many people show up to those games. It's going to be hot. It's going to be humid. I mean, and the sun is just going to be blasting right on you. I am curious to see what the turnout is in those games. I think you're going to have great turnouts in April and May. But come June, July, August, and I know that they maneuvered the schedule to where they don't have to do that too many times, but at the end of the day, they're still going to be playing games in June at 12:10. That's hot, especially when that sun is directly on you. I mean, think about some Buccaneers games you've gone to in September, right? And you've sat on the, behind the visitors bench where the sun takes forever to go down. It's hot, right? I remember going to a game last year. I think it was the creamsicle game. It was, I want to say it was late September. It was week 4, week 5? Maybe it was as late as week 6. I don't have the schedule in front of me. But it was when they wore the creamsicles last year. It was an early season game. I think they were 3-1 at the time, coming off of a bye. Yeah, it was like week 6 or 5. And I remember it being really hot. I remember going to my first Bucs game, preseason game in August. And that was at night, and it was extremely hot. I made it through one quarter. Because if I'm not comfortable, I'm out. Not going to be uncomfortable at a game. So I am interested to see how this plays out for the Rays. We've always said the attendance issue is because it's in St. Pete. Well, now it's in Tampa. And I think we're going to be like, well, the attendance issue is the heat. I do think that's going to affect fans from going to the games in the summer. And again, I think the Rays and Major League Baseball have done an incredible job making sure that the schedule is, planned the best they can around the rain, the best they can around the heat. But at the end of the day, you're still going to face those elements. And Kevin Cash has got his work cut out for him this year. He's going to have to structure the roster a little bit differently. They're going to have more arms than they typically would have. They're going to be, changing pitchers out a lot quicker than they usually do. And the Rays already do things differently. Well, now they're going to do it even differently than they've already been playing, right? Does that even make sense? You get what I mean. Things are going to be way different for an organization that is already way different. But 7:05 going to be the main start times for a majority of their games, and again 7:35. And I think that the 7:35 at night is smart. Let the temperatures come down a little bit. It's still going to be humid. It's the humidity that we're going to be just not loving, more so than anything. But I am curious to see what the attendance will be like in the summer. I think April, May, beginning of the season there, late March, it's going to be packed out. It's going to be fun. I'm excited for that. But I do think that there will be some struggles and attendance issues, and I expect the national media to completely blast us as a baseball town for it. As the national media sits in their air-conditioned, studios, looking down on Tampa Bay, just talking trash about us. I see it happening. Other things happening in baseball, Roki Sasaki, big surprise, signs with the Dodgers. What's up, by the way, anytime you see a picture of Roki Sasaki or any Japanese player, you ever notice their baseball stadiums are still like the old domes that we used to have? Like I think of the Metro Dome in Minneapolis or the Silver Dome in Detroit. You remember with like the roofs that, they get too much snow on them, they collapse. It's like an inflatable roof. That's how like all the stadiums still are over in Japan, which is really weird because they're like literally the most technological advanced country in the world, yet they still have these like 1980s domes. And that's the same for all these pictures I keep seeing of Roki Sasaki. But Roki Sasaki has signed with the Dodgers, so the rich get richer. And I got to be honest with you, I've never been less excited for a Rays season than I am right now. And Sasaki going to the Dodgers is one of them. Not that I expected him to come here to Tampa Bay, although there's a lot of talk that had the hurricane never happened, maybe we would have got him. I don't believe that. I don't think the hurricane had anything to do with that. I just think the hurricane, when it comes to Rays land, has been used as an excuse in more ways than one. And Roki Sasaki is just another one of those excuses. But I am sick of the top talent from Japan going to the Dodgers. I'm sick of them being able to sign wherever they want. You know, it's like college football. It's like they just recruit, and then the top talent goes to the top teams. And it's kind of a mess. You know, I hate that these players aren't part of the draft. Imagine if one of the top quarterbacks, imagine if, let's use college football for example, Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward, right? They're projected to be the top two quarterbacks. Imagine if they could just sign wherever they wanted rather than having to get drafted, right? Imagine if, you know, Sean McVay was able to recruit one of those quarterbacks. Hey, my guy's getting old. Come learn under him for a couple of years and then come play here. You know, the bad teams would never have a chance to get good. There are a lot of things we complain about in college football that happen in other sports, but we don't really complain about them as much. Now, here in Tampa Bay, we complain about salary cap in baseball because it definitely affects us. But I don't think we make a big of a deal of the unfairness in Major League Baseball as we do in college football. But college football has some of the same problems the NFL has, some of the same problems Major League Baseball has. You know, for the NFL, for example, you know, college football, we have done nothing but complain about the playoff system since it took place. You know, think about the Bucs game last weekend. You had a team with less wins hosting a playoff game. Had that, but nobody really talked about that. Nor did I, especially not here, which I didn't care. It benefited the Bucs, obviously not the outcome, but it gave them a home game. Now, if that were to happen in college football, where the lower-ranked team was hosting the higher-ranked team, all hell would break loose. We wouldn't be happy with it. We weren't happy that Arizona State and Boise State got the byes. We complained about it. But these things have been happening in the NFL playoff system for years. You know, look at Minnesota. They won 14 games and had to go play on the road in L.A., a team that had won 10. They won 4 more games than L.A., yet we're the road team. You know, if it was college football and they were ranked, the Vikings would have been ranked in the top 4 with that win total. Instead, they had to go on the road because of a weird playoff system. Now, do I expect the NFL to change? No. Division winners should be rewarded. But there is unbalance in the divisions. This year, the NFC North, you had the Lions, the Packers, Vikings, 14, 15, 11 wins. I guess you could call it the SEC. The NFC South, 10 wins won the division. You could call it the Big 12. You know, but nobody really complains about the NFL system, but we cry about the college all the time. Now, in baseball, the similarities to college football is it's a free-for-all. There's no structure. College football, the best programs get the best players. They got the most money. They pay the most. And that's what happens in baseball. And baseball, to me, is becoming really watered down, and I don't have much excitement for it when it comes to my team can win a championship. Does anybody feel the Rays have a chance to win a championship this year? And I think here I just feel down about baseball because, one, we have the narrative surrounding that this team could leave, right? You have the stadium drama. They really didn't make any significant offseason moves that I think made them significantly better. And I understand we are never supposed to doubt the Rays, but, you know, I don't think that this team is going to be a magical team. I don't. And they're going against all these obstacles of having to play outdoor baseball, you know, in Florida in the summer. That's going to be a challenge. You could also look at it as it's going to be an advantage. Other teams are going to have to come here. It might be a home field advantage. I don't know. But I feel like I've never been less excited about a Rays home opener since I've been here. I think the only thing I'm looking forward to in baseball season this year is the outdoor stadium. But that's going to wear off eventually, probably late May when it starts to get hot. But I feel like outdoor baseball shouldn't be what I'm most excited about, but it is because I just feel the baseball balance is so imbalanced. The Dodgers, the Yankees, they're spending all of this money, the Mets. I wish baseball had a salary cap. I think it would be better for the game. It's never going to happen, but I think it would be better for the game. But yeah, baseball, they have the same problems as college football. NFL's got some of the same problems as college football. We just don't complain about them as much. I mean, don't get me wrong. College football seems to have the problems from baseball and the NFL all in one, so they have more problems. But no sport is perfect. And baseball really has to get this fixed because it's just, I hate seeing all of the best Japanese players being able to just go to the Dodgers. He was never going to Toronto, the Blue Jays. Come on. Who's going to Canada? Nobody. You know, they said the other team was the Padres. There was a chance there because most of the Japanese players stay on the West Coast. It's closer to home. Their fans can watch them play at a decent time. So not surprised by, that at all. But these players should have to go into a draft. Whether it's a separate draft or it's just the Japanese play. I don't know how you do it, but just do it. Because, a team like the Rays not having any chance at these players, it just sucks. And then you end up with this imbalance. And you look at the payroll from teams like the Rays to the Dodgers, it's a bigger gap than, Ohio State and let's say the Gators, right? Like it's just more balanced in college football when it comes to the play structure and the pay structure. So baseball needs to make a change. I've just never been so unexcited about an opening day. And this is part of it because I'm not sitting here going, all right, the Rays have a shot this year. I don't feel that at all. The thing I'm most excited about is literally playing outside. I think it's going to be fun on March 28th. But come June 28th, I'm going to be like, oh, sure do miss the Trop right now. We'll take your calls on the Rays, 888-546-4620. I see Charlie. I see Ben on hold. We're going to take your calls on the other side. Also want to talk about Super Bowl odds for next year because those are out. We'll get into all of it. We're talking Tampa Bay sports this morning on the Nick Wise Show.
Tampa Bay Sports Radio, 95.3 WDAE and AM 620. From the Cool Today Weather Center, cooltoday.com.
Your Max Defender 8 forecast is cool, but not nearly as chilly as it has been, thanks to some overnight cloud cover and southerly winds. That combination allows our temperatures to soar today as well. Expected to be breezy, mild, and a little on the cloudy side. Temperatures will climb into the low to mid 70s this afternoon, feeling extra comfortable. We have slight chances for showers this evening, but the chances for rain really build as we head into Sunday's forecast, and a cold front pushes through with a round of decent downpours right in the middle of the day. I'm Max Defender 8 meteorologist Rebecca Berry.
This report is sponsored by Lowe's. Shop limited time deals during Lowe's Pro Savings Days. Get a free adjustable stand when you buy a DeWalt 12-inch miter saw. That's a $229 value. Valid 1/13 through 1/24 while supplies last.
Start your year off stress-free and sell your home with a guaranteed offer from Mark Spain Real Estate. You can save time and make the most money. Hey, it's Aaron Jacobson here, and I'm here with my friend Mark Spain. And Mark, how is the guaranteed offer from Mark Spain Real Estate the best way to sell your home?
Let's face it, open houses are inconvenient. Not to mention having strangers traipsing through your home, looking in your closets. We created the Guaranteed Offer to provide home sellers with an easy and quick solution, stress-free way to sell their homes. With the Guaranteed Offer, there's no showings, no home inspections, no open houses, no lock boxes. Just a quick sale, very competitive offer. It's that easy.
With nearly 12,500 five-star reviews, you can trust the most experienced real estate team in the U.S. to sell your home fast and for maximum profit. Don't worry about making costly repairs or keeping your home clean for showings. No showings, no open house.
and they will play 9 games at 12:10, and they'll play 7 games at 1:10, 6 games at 4:10, and 5 at 1:40. So, they moved the Saturday, Sunday games up to 12:10 on the weekend. They're going to play June games at 12:10, which that's going to be. I'm curious to see what the attendance is going to be like in those games because, I think about Sunday games at Raymond James Stadium. Those are hot. Think about those early Sunday games, especially if you're sitting on the behind the visitor side where it takes forever for the sun to go down. If you sit behind the Buccaneers, the sun goes down a little bit earlier. It's not as bad. But if you sit on that other side, it's bad. I mean, I went to a Gators game when they played LSU. That was November. And until the sun went down, it was brutal. So I do see some challenges coming with the Rays and the scheduling. I know Major League Baseball and the Rays are doing their best, but it's going to be challenging. And they got to move around the weather, with the rain and the heat, and it's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out. I was also talking about how I'm disappointed in Major League Baseball and how it operates. Roki Sasaki, the young phenom pitcher out of Japan, signed with the Dodgers. Oh, nothing excites me more about baseball than another top player going to the Dodgers. Can we get some balance? Major League Baseball is a lot like college football, is kind of what I was talking about when you think about it. The best programs always get the top recruits, right? All the 5 stars, they go to the same 4 schools. It's Georgia, Alabama, Texas, Ohio State, Michigan, and LSU sometimes get a couple. Florida's gotten some, DJ Lagway. But really, it's the same 10 schools. Look at the national championship coming up on Monday. Ohio State's got 10 5-stars. Notre Dame, 0. College football is imbalanced. Major League Baseball, imbalanced. College football, no salary cap. You got some teams paying $20 million, some teams only got $1 million. Same thing in Major League Baseball. The Dodgers spending money they don't even have. The Rays, homeless. I just wish we could get some parity from the top to bottom and even this thing out a little bit. Don't get me wrong, the Rays have had some success, but they haven't gotten over the top, and most teams with a small payroll don't ever get over the top. Go look at the last 10 World Series winners. I think the smallest payroll on there was the Houston Astros in 2017. I think they were ranked 17th. But we all remember how they won. That was my trash can banging. We'll go to Charlie in Tampa. Wants to talk about Rays ticket prices. Charlie, what's up, man? You're on the Nick Y Show. Charlie?
For 20 minutes is crying about we don't have this, we don't have that. What happened? You slept on a couch last night, Nicky boy?
Hey, Charlie, you got cut off there in the beginning. Can you start over? What were you saying?
I said, all you've been doing for the first 20 minutes is crying about how we're at a disadvantage. Let's man up and let's just play ball, bro. The Yankees have had the highest payroll outside of the Dodgers since 2009, and they haven't won a World Series, brother.
They won a World Series in 2009.
Yeah, that's what I said. Since 2009, I was at the game. So, I get we're at a disadvantage, but let's have a little optimism here. Did you sleep on the couch last night? Number one. Number two, ticket prices. I got an email from the Rays for a season ticket for outfield down by where the outfield and the end of the infield meet for like a 5th row seats. One ticket is $19,548 for the season.
Wow.
Face value is $250 per ticket, and the cheapest seat is $250 per ticket in the stadium. I'm not joking. I have the pricing chart. Go look at it. They're literally for 4 tickets on the checkout, at the checkout bar on the website, was $99,000 for 4 freaking tickets in the outfield to the Rays game. So they hiked up the prices of tickets like literally tenfold, trying to make their money that way. I hope they go 0-162 just because of that.
Well, come on, man. You're talking about me crying and complaining. You want them to lose every game. Let me ask you this, Charlie. You sound like a big Rays fan because you looked up season tickets. Are you going to be willing to sit in the outfield or anywhere, for that matter, in June, July, August?
Not for no $250 for like maybe $30, yeah, but not for $250. I got 5 kids, bro. If I wanted to take just the boys to the game, right? Say I took 2 of the boys to the game, and then me and my wife. So 4 people, it's $1,000 face value before you park and before you buy anything. So how do they expect people to go to the game? That makes no sense.
Yeah,
I understand the level playing field being, disparity, Nicky boy. But geez, bro, that pricing, I will cry about that because the hell no. Come on, tell me who in Tampa is going to spend $1,000 to go watch the Rays play on a sweaty night on a Tuesday at 7:30. Me and you're going to be crying in the parking lot together watching it on TV.
I can't even watch it on TV because I got a streaming service. So, Charlie, we might not be able to even watch it in the parking lot. It's going to be really hard to watch baseball.
We'll listen to it on the radio with Neil Solondz, and
I like
we'll
it.
fill out our scorebook.
I'm all for that, man. We can always support 95.3 and WDA and AM 620. Charlie, I appreciate your call, man, and hopefully we'll see you out at Steinbrenner Field for some games this year, okay?
Love you, buddy. Keep
going.
man.
Thank you. Hey, look, I'm not trying to sound like a downer. I'm telling you how I feel. I've never been less excited for a Rays season. In my time here, maybe I've been spoiled. The Rays have always been really damn good, right? And we always look at the over-under and we laugh at it. We're like, they're underestimating us again this year. Well, last year they weren't. They had it right on. This year the over-under, if you were wondering, 80.5. for the Tampa Bay Rays. They are predicted to finish 4th. None of that stuff really bothers me. I don't buy into that. That's not what has me down about baseball. What has me down about baseball is that it's so top-heavy. And I wish it had some balance. I don't know. Maybe this Japanese pitcher, Roki Sasaki signing with the Dodgers, it's hit me the wrong way. I see it last night. I'm just like, really? Why? Huh? Why? And why the Dodgers? Why the Yankees? I'd say why the Mets, but you know what? The Mets are like lovable losers. They spend a lot, but they don't win. So it wouldn't have bothered me so much had he gone to the Mets. But Dodgers and Yankees, makes me sick. I just want to see baseball evened out a little bit. That's all. I'm not trying to poop on the parade here. I just want to see parity. I want it to not be so top heavy. I want the little guy, us, the Tampa Bay Rays, to have a shot. That's all I'm saying. Because I'm going into the mindset of this season feeling like there really isn't one. And I could totally be wrong. The Rays are a team that could totally surprise. They always do. But what has happened this offseason that makes you think that? I don't have that gut feeling yet. Looking at the World Series odds, where the Rays stack up, and it's towards the bottom. And again, I don't expect the national love. We never get it. Major League Baseball does nothing to prop up the smaller teams. How many times have we been on Sunday Night Baseball? Never. In my time here, I don't think we've ever been on in Sunday Night Baseball. And that includes really good Rays teams that have won 100 games. Now, last year's team, I understand them not being on. They weren't very good. But the year before, none. They make the playoffs. What do they give us? A 3 o'clock playoff game. Thanks for helping us out. Thanks for putting us on TV. I just don't think we get great support from Major League Baseball. I don't know. Maybe I slept on the wrong side of the bed and I am waking up crying and complaining. I'm not trying to be a baby about it, but it's how I feel right now. I have no excitement for the season other than they're playing outside, because I do remember going to opening day last year and the year before going, man, it's so nice outside. This game would be great outdoors. And this year I'm going to have that. It's going to be great outdoors. It should be a beautiful opening day. I'm hoping for a big party opening day. Everybody takes off work. I'm hoping Tampa's going to be bumping. All the bars around in that area are going to be great. That's what I'm manifesting. Opening day. I've done opening day in Detroit. I've done opening day in New York. I've done opening day in Chicago. All fantastic. I don't expect us to have those, but I expect us to have a vibe and an atmosphere. I am manifesting that right now. Looking at the World Series odds, the Rays are plus 4,000. They are behind teams like the Cleveland Guardians, the Minnesota Twins, the Detroit Tigers, and the Cubs. They are fourth in the division. The Blue Jays actually predicted to finish last. It's about time the national media gets over the love of the Toronto Blue Jays every year. You always see them hyped to win the East, and you're like, that's not going to happen. They're not going to finish at first. They're not going to finish in second, probably third either. But the Blue Jays plus 6,500 to win the World Series, and like I said, finish last in the AL East. All right, so we're talking, World Series odds here. How about Super Bowl odds for next year? I know the Super Bowl this year hasn't even happened yet, but the Bucs have been eliminated. They're not winning it. So why not look into next year's odds? Where do they have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? Because I do believe that the Buccaneers, unlike the Rays this year, I think the Bucs next year are going to be contenders for the Super Bowl. I didn't think they were going into this year. Am I a little disappointed they didn't win a playoff game? Yeah, they're a little bit below the expectation I had for them. I thought they would win their first playoff game. And losing the divisional round is where I always had them. And they did not match what they did a year ago, so a little bit of a disappointment of a year. But I didn't have them winning a championship. That was never my expectation. Next year, though, I might feel a little bit differently. I think a couple things will need to go right in the offseason for it to happen, but I think they will be a much better team next year. They won 8 games under Todd Bowles, then 9 games, then 10 next year. Let's get to 11. Let's win a couple playoff games. Let's challenge for the number 1 seed and maybe the bye. I think they'll have the talent to do that. All right, Super Bowl odds for next year. They're out. We'll go over those next. Where do the Bucs?
Show on 95.3 WDAE and AM 620.
It is a live and local Saturday. We're live and local till 3 o'clock. Welcome in. Good to have you along. We talked Tampa Bay Rays. Talked a little bit about the schedule. Talked about the Dodgers landing another Japanese prospect who's supposed to be awesome. The rich get richer. I don't understand why there's not a draft for those players. The imbalance of Major League Baseball, in my opinion, is hurting the game. It's not as competitive top to bottom. And look, the Rays have been outliers. They've had success, but not many organizations can do what the Rays can do. And hell, I don't even know if the Rays are doing what the Rays do the last few years. Last year was a down year, and I don't know. Am I being negative? I don't have high expectations for the team this year. And neither does Vegas. And not that Vegas is the end-all, be-all, but I think sometimes it can be telling. Now, I do think that they are probably more wrong with the Rays than any other organization. But, it's set at 80.5, and I think they're going to have a long year. They're overcoming a lot of obstacles. They're going to be playing in a minor league ballpark. They're going to be playing outdoors in Florida. It's going to be an interesting season. It really is. We'll go to Andy in Bradenton, and then we're going to get to the Super Bowl odds for next year that just came out. I'll let you know where the Bucs land. But let's bring Andy in Bradenton in. He wants to talk about the Rays real quick. Andy, you're on the Nick Wise Show. What's up, man?
Yeah, hey, Nick. How's it going?
It's going good, dude. How are you?
Yeah, doing well. I've been a Rays fan a long time, and looking at this coming season, I'm optimistic as far as the pitching goes because I think the starting pitching is going to be really good. We got some really good young guys in the bullpen. I think we're really going to really step it up and pitch really well. So pitching-wise, I'm optimistic. Hitting-wise, looks like it's going to be very average. So I think your pessimism, is probably warranted as far as, World Series odds. I think we got to lower the expectations probably. And
I don't want to do that, though, Andy. I don't want to lower the expectations. But you're right.
Well,
I probably have to.
We got to for this year. For this year, we got to. If next year we're back at Tropicana, we pick up some really good hitters or develop our young hitters, I think we're looking at the playoffs next year. But realistically, with our hitting, it could happen this year, right? Because we got really good pitching. But I don't think realistically, I think it's more fantasy to say, you're going to go deep in the playoffs this year. But I think the optimistic part is next year, like with the Bucs. They're not doing it this year, but next year, with our young hitters coming up, I think next year, there's the potential of being really good. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think the Bucs are much closer than, the Rays at winning a championship. I just, Andy, I think what's driving me nuts and really irking me about the whole Dodgers thing, getting Roki Sasaki, is not only are they taking that player, but then when you look at their rotation, you look at the 2020 Rays World Series team that faced the Dodgers, they got two of our pitchers from that rotation in their lineup, and that's driving me nuts too, Andy. I'm sick of teams like the Dodgers.
That they basically buy a World Series every year.
We're the Dodgers farm team.
They haven't been able to do it. The Dodgers, they haven't been able to do it, but they try every year. Friedman, he's a smart dude, and he's got billions of dollars, right?
Yeah.
The Rays don't. So,
well,
they're going to try to buy it every year. So,
thanks for the call, Andy. The Rays have billions. They just pretend they don't. They literally pretend to be the perception of a homeless team. And technically they are homeless. But even before they've always pretended to be homeless. But yeah, I think that's what's driving me nuts too. And I'm so irked this morning. It's like you look at their lineup, they got Glasnow and Snell, and you're just like, don't get me wrong, I think they paid probably a little bit too much for Snell, but just to see them got those two in their rotation on top of getting Roki Sasaki, I'm just like, could not be more unexcited. All right, Super Bowl odds are out in Vegas. Where do they have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? All right, this is for next year's Super Bowl, which is in 386 days. And I know what you're thinking. Well, we haven't even gotten to this Super Bowl yet. Why are you talking about next year's? Well, because the Bucs season's over. So we are looking at next year's Super Bowl odds. And I was actually surprised by who was number one. It's not the Kansas City Chiefs. It's not the Detroit Lions. It's not even the Buffalo Bills or the Eagles or the Niners. It's the Ravens. The Ravens are number one Super Bowl favorites for the 2026 Super Bowl. So I basically kind of gave it to you in order. It's the Ravens, the Chiefs, the Lions. The Ravens, by the way, number one plus 500. Bills fourth. And then it's Eagles, Niners, Packers, Bengals, Chargers, Commanders, Rams. Notice you haven't heard the Tampa Bay Buccaneers names yet, which I find interesting, especially over teams like the Niners who have, look, they're kind of aging. The Niners having the sixth best Super Bowl odds next year, I feel like that's a little overrated, but maybe they'll prove me wrong when they get healthy again. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers fall after the Rams at number 12. You have the 12th best Super Bowl odds. You have the highest odds in the NFC South. Therefore, they think you're going to win the South. Imagine that. For the first time in the last 5 years, they think you're going to win the South. For the first time since Tom Brady, Vegas thinks you'll win the South. It's funny, right? Because they never think the Bucs will, and then the Bucs do it. So they have the Bucs 12 plus 3,500 for next year's Super Bowl. But the Bucs have a lot of work before they can get to that level. What needs to change this offseason for the Buccaneers to get to the next level? Which, to me, the next level would be NFC Championship game. Because last year they got to the divisional round. This year they took a step back. They did win the same amount of games, but they took a step back because they didn't get to week number 2 in the playoffs. They were eliminated last weekend, as we know. The doink heard around the world. They are now done. What needs to change this offseason for the Buccaneers to get to the next level? What is your offseason wish list for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? 888-546-4620 is the phone number. I want your Buccaneers wish list as you sit here and start manifesting things, because I know you're thinking about the offseason. That's what we do as fans. We're looking at the draft. We're in mock draft mode. We're clicking on every single one of them that we see. We don't even care about football today. We are just worried about the offseason, and you have a list of things you want. You know, for me, I think what needs to happen is I think you need to retain your coordinator, Liam Cohen. And I have a pretty good idea that I think that's going to happen. I do think there's one team that could take him, and Tom Brady would be the reason why. And no, I don't have him going to the Raiders. Well, why is Tom Brady still involved? I'll get into that conspiracy theory in a little bit. But my wish list is, retain Liam Cohen, which I think is going to happen. Give Baker Mayfield an offensive coordinator 2 years in a row, which is something I don't think. I'd have to go back and look. He may have had that in his career once, but I don't think he has. I don't think he's ever had the same coordinator. Again, I'd have to fact check that. And I'm sure the text messages will do that. They usually do. You say anything wrong on the station and people let you know how stupid you are real quick. You could text in on the Bartow 4 DAE text line 82945. But I would like to see continuity with Baker Mayfield and Liam Cohen. So that is on my wish list. All right. I've got a couple things too. Depth on the defense. When it comes to the draft, free agents, I'd like to see them work free agency a little bit. I do think this is a destination that people would want to come to. This is a team that is going to contend next year. This is a team that will win the NFC South or be favored to do so. I do think free agents would want to come and play here. And I think if you could just get a couple guys on defense and can recruit them to come here, and I'm not talking old guys like Shaq Barrett. I love Shaq. What he's done here is incredible. I didn't want that to sound disrespectful, but to me, that move never excited me. It was a great name. Love the history he's had here, but when they made the Shaq Barrett move, I never went like, oh, well, now I think they're going to get farther in the playoffs. I never felt that way. I want them to sign someone that can, be a game changer on the defensive side. They have to get more depth. Because as we play more games in the regular season, went from 16 to 17, eventually they're going to go 17 to 18, it's going to continue to be the teams with more depth that have success because injuries are going to be a bigger part of the game from here on out as we continue to add games. That's why I'm cool with where they're at now. I don't need an 18th game. You watch these teams with injuries like the Bucs. I don't want to watch third and fourth guys on the depth chart play every week. And that's exactly what's happening when you add more games to the regular season. But I would like to see more depth added to the defense. In the draft, are they going to go in the secondary? Are they going to go defensive line? I think it's going to be whatever best player falls. I always think you got to take best available player over need. That's just my opinion. But I think they do need more of a pass rush. And they have generated more pressure this year. They just struggle to get home at times, which is what we said last year. And I think a good pass rush will help, your secondary. But at the same time, you got to think they're going to need to probably replace Jamel Dean. Carlton Davis will be available. You want to bring him back? He's just going to be very expensive. But hell, there were times this year you probably missed Carlton Davis. There were a few times I missed Carlton Davis. More than a few. Sunday I did. I think everybody missed Carlton Davis the last couple of weeks, even his new team. But as far as Carlton Davis is, whether he's someone they want to look to sign, I don't think so. I don't think they would have let him go if they were going to give him a long-term deal. And at the same time, Carlton Davis can't stay healthy. He always misses 4 games a year or more. He was looking good with the Lions, and then he broke his jaw. So what is on your Buccaneers wish list this offseason for this team to get to the next level? What has to happen? 888-546-4620 is the phone number. Got a couple people on hold. We're going to get to the calls. We're going to get to the text. But I do want to hear from Bucs fans this morning. Because if you're listening this morning, you're a true Bucs fan. And I need your opinion on what's going to happen with this team or what needs to happen. All right, this is the show where your opinion matters the most. I want to hear from you. What needs to happen this offseason for the Bucs to have success? 888-546-4620. You can text in 82945. We'll get to your calls and text. That's coming up next.
Tampa Bay Sports Radio, 95.3 WDAE and AM 620. From the Cool Today Weather Center, cooltoday.com.
Your Max Defender 8 forecast is cloudy, breezy, but mild. Afternoon temperatures soaring into the low 70s for the first time in several days. Your chances for rain for the most part today remain low. We see an evening isolated chance.
It's Radio 95.3 WDAE and AM 620.
Oh, good to have you along on a Saturday. I appreciate you listening. We're talking about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I do want to get into a little college football stuff coming up in hour number 2. But we're talking about your Tampa Bay Buccaneers offseason wish list. You know, what does this team need to do this offseason in order to have success? And for me, obviously, number one, I want to retain Liam Cohen. I want to keep the offense that was this year intact. I want continuity in Baker's career, something that he's never had. I'd love to see him work with an offensive coordinator for multiple years. I should have looked it up during the break, but I haven't. I'm not sure if Baker's ever had the same offensive coordinator 2 weeks in a row. I think Baker's had like 10 offensive coordinators in his career. It's insane. So I think Liam Cohen, retaining him is obviously number one. And I think there's a good chance of that happening. I think there's only one team that will maybe hire Liam Cohen. And we'll have Tom Brady to blame for that. And no, it's not the Raiders. What you're thinking right now, wow, Tom Brady, it doesn't have to do with the Raiders. How's Tom Brady affecting Liam Cohen going somewhere? I'll get into that conspiracy theory in hour number 2. But my wish list is to retain Liam Cohen and maybe sign a couple free agents this offseason, particularly on the defensive side of things. All right, there is a player that I would love to join the Buccaneers in the offseason that I think would be a tremendous help to this defense. He had 6 sacks this year. He was incredible for his team. He's kind of had a resurgence in his career. He's older. And he's going to cost you about, $20 million a year. But I think he's worth it because I think he is someone who could be very valuable to this team. I'll tell you who that player is in just a second. Looking at a couple of the text messages coming in. This one has to be a joke. If the Bucs can sign a stud punter, I think they will win the Super Bowl next year. All right, let's hope Jason Light's not listening right now. I don't want him to draft a punter. That is not what this team needs in order to get to a Super Bowl. But you're so funny. No, I think the biggest needs, it's going to be edge rusher. It's going to be secondary. Those are what you need. Don't get me wrong, though. A good punter is something good to have. Look at the Lions and Jack Fox. They paid him a couple $1 million a year. He turns the game around for that offense a lot of times. You'll see it today if Detroit ever punts. Nobody might punt in that game today. Both of those teams, Washington and Detroit, go for it a lot on 4th down. Another text coming in on the Bartow Ford DA text line. We got to pay Cohen and make him coach in waiting. We know Bowles is. We know how Bowles is and how long does he have left. All right, enough with the Liam Cohen coach in waiting stuff. We have no idea what this guy is as far as in terms of head coach. We know that he's a great offensive play caller, and we know that he's done great things here. But I am not ready to hand over the organization to this guy that has called plays in the NFL for 1 year. I can't do that. I know it seems easy to do, and you think just because they're good at being a coordinator that they can be a head coach. But let's make the guy prove himself first. Don't get me wrong, he's off to a great start. But I'm not ready to make him coach in waiting. I think that is one of the most ridiculous takes, is to make Liam Cohen coach in waiting. The grass is not always greener on the other side. You have Liam Cohen on your offense right now, and Todd Bowles does manage a good defense. Do you think that the Buccaneers, if Liam was the head coach and running the offense and Todd Bowles was just focused on the defense, do you really think the Buccaneers are that much better? Because let me tell you, if you take Liam Cohen and you made him the head coach right now, and let's say Todd Bowles isn't here, like a lot of you want him out, there's a good chance the defensive coordinator you bring in here probably isn't as good as Todd Bowles. I think even you, guy who hates Todd Bowles as a head coach, can admit he's a defensive coordinator, and he's pretty good at it. Won a Super Bowl with them. So do you think that the team would be better if Liam is the head coach running the offense and Todd's just running the defense? Rather than the other way around, what it currently is? I don't think they're that much better. Maybe Liam Cohen is a little bit better with the clock. but I don't know. I haven't seen it, but I'm not ready to make a guy coach in waiting. Look how that worked out for the Patriots. Gerard Mayo was coach in waiting. What had Gerard Mayo shown you that he was ready to be the coach in waiting? Now, again, I know Liam Cohen has shown you one good year and that he can turn an offense around, but I'm not ready to make him coach in waiting. Let's go to Brad in Fort Myers. Must be listening on the iHeartRadio app. Brad, you're on the Nick Wise Show. What's on your Buccaneers off-season wish list this year?
All right. Well, let's just start with what you've been talking about, coaching. Well, let's just say that the Bucs decide to keep Bowles as head coach.
I think they're keeping him, Brad. If they were going to get rid of him, I think it would already happen because now you're already falling behind, and you can't reach out to guys like Aaron Glenn or Ben Johnson, who are two good coaching candidates. You can't reach out to anybody that is currently in the playoffs. You've missed the deadline there. So I think Bowles is here.
But my point is you have to start with the defensive side of coaching. You have to replace the linebackers coach. You have to replace the secondary coach. You have to replace the safety coach. You have to get new coordinators in because a lot this season was always open in the middle and outside parts of the defense. Yes, secondary coaching and linebacker has to be changed. You have to get new vision, new blood in. These coaches that have been with Bowles, they're not doing what they need to do. So that's number one, I would say, is replace the linebackers coaching and the secondary coaching.
Yeah, but what about the players? Don't you think that a little bit has to deal with the players not being able to cover?
Yeah,
I mean, which is if it's either the players or the coaches, Brad. In some situations it's both. But this team was very handicapped on the defensive side. I don't know what more the coaching staff could have done. We've seen this coaching staff when fully healthy, and I get it, it's the NFL, not everybody's fully healthy, but we've seen this coaching staff perform really well and shut down one of the top offenses of all time in a Super Bowl. So
yeah, but that's 3 years ago or 4 years ago.
Right, but those are the same coaches.
I understand, but and they were also handicapped because of a lot of injuries. I'm not taking away, but I'm just saying we need depth. So right. I also go into free agency, as you said, look for an elite pass rusher because that's one of the big keys that hurt us in the secondary was not having elite pass rushing. If we had an elite pass rusher like we had during the Super Bowl, whether it be JPP or, when Shaq was healthy, we need an elite edge rusher that would take a lot of the edge off the corners and secondary.
I agree, Brad. That's exactly what they need is an edge rusher. The guy that comes to mind, thank you for the call, by the way. The guy that comes to mind for me that's a free agent, and I know he's 33 years old. I kind of teased it a minute ago. He had 668 snaps this year. Graded out on PFF. If you believe in PFF to be the be-all, end-all. He was a 90.2. He was fifth out of 118 edge rushers. He'd cost you about $20 million a year. And again, he's older, but he's played really good here as of late in his career, and that's Khalil Mack. Imagine Khalil Mack on the edge. You got Vita Vea and Kancey. Diaby could learn from a guy like Khalil Mack. Now, is it going to happen? Probably not. But that's why we're talking wish list right now. I'm manifesting it because that's what the team needs. Give me someone that can get to the quarterback. Now, he had 6 sacks this year. But I think with the interior line that the Bucs have, I think Khalil Mack would be really good with this defense. He also can cover a little bit better than pretty much anybody on your roster not named Levante David. So Khalil Mack is somebody I would not mind them looking at. I know he's older in his age, but so is Levante David. I want him back too. I do think Levante David is essential to this team. I didn't put him amongst my wish list. I think that's just kind of automatic. But he is on my wish list. But give me Levante David and Khalil Mack. Oh, give me that. Now, Khalil Mack, I'm not asking him to drop into coverage. I want him rushing the quarterback. But he's capable of doing it better than anybody on the Bucs defense outside of the secondary. Let's go to Harold in Tampa. Harold, you're on the Nick Wise Show. What's up, buddy?
Hey, man, you say this is a wish list, so I'm trying to figure out why you not got Myles Garrett at the top of the wish list.
All right.
Mack, he's great.
Well,
he's great, but he's not tall enough for what we need on defensive line.
Well, Harold, here's the thing. I would love Myles Garrett, but I think that's where we're getting a little bit unrealistic. Are you willing to part ways with, you'd get him for 2 years. He's got 2 years left on his deal. You'd probably have to give up 2 first-round picks. What do you think? Would you do that for 2 years of Myles Garrett?
Well, not 2 first rounds. Maybe something else in the deal. But
you ain't going to get it for anything else, Harold.
I would love Myles Garrett.
Yeah, but
sorry?
But it's gonna cost 2 first-round picks.
I don't know, man. We got some good capologists. They can make some other moves, but one, but not 2.
This isn't Madden, Harold, where you're just like force the acceptance of the trade. It's got to go both ways, and I don't think Cleveland's going to part ways with the guy. But hey, I agree with it. If there was one guy I could have, it would be Myles Garrett or Micah Parsons, who maybe will be on his way out in Dallas. You know, I'm down for that. But Khalil Mack is actually realistic. He's a free agent. Brock in Tampa he's got a wish list for the Bucs this offseason. Brock, you're on the Nick Wise Show. Go ahead, man.
Yeah, no, I think we don't draft any defense. That way our defense is in last place, and then we can finally get Todd Bowles out of here. And I'm not saying Liam Cohen is going to be a good head coach, but, you know, I would hate to waste the rest of some of these veterans' careers with Todd Bowles, and we're just going to, what? So if we make the divisional round next year, then that's like an improvement? No, we're right back where we were the 2 years before that. I mean, I just want some change there. I know 620, their stance right now is we like to keep Todd Bowles, but man.
Let me ask you this, Brock. Let me ask you this, Brock. Let's say Liam Cohen is the head coach, right? And so that means he's got to find a defensive coordinator because Todd Bowles is out. Can you name 5 defensive coordinators that are better than Todd Bowles off the top of your head?
I mean, probably. I mean, I know there's 31 other that are better in the passing game right now than Todd Bowles.
Okay.
But what I will say is that I don't even know if Liam Cohen should be the coach. I wish we could just keep Liam Cohen as offensive coordinator and no one was allowed to hire him. That'd be great.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Some other coach, but you can't do that.
Nope. Thanks for the
I don't know.
Thanks for the call, Brock. I
Yes,
appreciate
thank
it.
you.
Couldn't name 5 defensive coordinators better than Todd Bowles. I'm not saying he's the best coach, but I think that you'd be taking a big risk getting rid of him. You get rid of him, I think Levante David's gone. I don't think Mike Evans will be happy with it. And by Levante David being gone, I don't think he's going to go to another team, but I think if Todd Bowles is out, I think he would retire. Phone line's always open to talk about the Buccaneers, 888-546-4620. I also want to talk college football because some news came out about possible changes in the CFP. I'll get you caught up on the future plans. That's coming up next.
Tampa Bay Sports Radio, 95.3 WDAE and AM 620. Listening on the free iHeartRadio app? Thanks to Farrah and Farrah. It's never been easier to send your opinions directly to your favorite show. When you open the app, click the red talkback microphone and hit send. Farrah and Farrah, here to make it easy, Tampa.
Men, if you're suffering from erectile dysfunction or PE, Prestige Men's Medical Center will get your sex life back in just one visit. Their painless, breakthrough medical treatments eliminate ED and PE. Here's a specialist in men's health.
I'm Dr. Simovitz. Have Viagra or Cialis let you down? Prestige Men's Medical Center offers the most effective treatments that eliminate ED and PE with men lasting longer than ever. 98% of patients see instant results on their first visit.
Prestige Men's Medical Center's breakthrough treatments will restore your sex life regardless of age or medical history. Your consultation and first treatment are free. Plus, you'll see instant results in the office. Plus, qualified patients will have their testosterone checked free. Call 813-288-2202. 813-288-2202. To regain your sex life in just one visit, call now. 813-288-2202.
At Rivard Buick GMC, it doesn't matter where you live because from the comfort of your home, you can enjoy the massive new GMC discounts with upfront pricing that Rivard is known for, saving you thousands. Check out over 650 new vehicles in stock. Find one that you like, and we'll deliver it to you, whether you're 1 mile or 1,000 miles from us. You'll receive great customer service with no hassle and no pressure. That's how we got to be the #2 GMC dealer in the country. RivardBuickGMC.com. GMC, We are professional grade.
From the Rude Air and Water Studios, powered locally by Ferguson HVAC, engineered tough, built to last.
The home of your Tampa Bay Rays. We are 95.3 W237CW Pinellas Park, WRUB HD3 Clearwater, and the mighty AM 620 WDAE St. Petersburg, an iHeart radio station.
It is the Nick Weiss Show here until 11 o'clock, hour number 2 underway. After me, Chris and Casey. They will be here till 1 o'clock, and then Rock Riley takes over for an hour. And then after Rock Riley, Aaron Jacobson going to be doing a show because he lost a bet to me. And if you don't know, the bet was they went to the Army-Navy game. I texted Aaron while he was at the game. You can get Aaron to bet on anything. I said, hey, I'll take Navy and the points. If Army wins, you get a free vacation day. If Army loses, you got to do a show on Saturdays for an entire month. And then he got COVID, so pushed it back a week. So all of January, he's going to be live and part of February. And that gives us local radio from 9 to 3 on Saturdays. I hope you guys enjoy it. Last week was the first week we did it. I enjoyed it. I listened all day last week. I just moved from St. Pete to Clearwater, so I was, getting the new house in order and listening to the shows, and it was incredible. Seeing the text messages come in, all the positivity. I know you guys liked it. I loved it as well. It really was a lot of fun last weekend, and we're going to do it again this weekend. So some change in college football is what people want. We always want change in college football. The question is there going to be any change to the college football playoff system? And it doesn't look like there is going to be. A lot of people are wondering, well, are they going to change the college football system and re-rank the teams and reseed them after the first round? Because there were a lot of issues with the format, right? Arizona State, Boise State getting buys, it didn't make any sense. They clearly were not two of the top teams, and they got boat raced in their game. Well, actually, that's not fair to say. Arizona State did hang with Texas. But at the end of the day, Arizona State and Boise State were not two of the best teams deserving of buys, but they got them. And it looks like a seating structure change for the college football format is unlikely to happen next year. You would need some compromise with all of the commissioners, according to Yahoo Sports. And the commissioner of the Big 12 and the Mountain West, the commissioners of those conferences, do you think that they're going to want to change the system? No, it benefited them. I believe they got $8 million for their conference for those two buys. Arizona State getting the buy, Boise State getting the buy. This also helps the ACC. I think that, Brett Yormark, the Big 12 commissioner, says he's certainly, open to talking about this, but at the same time, he's not going to give up any financial reward that comes with the bye week. So I don't think you're going to be able to get all the commissioners to play ball on this. I think we're kind of stuck in the format. My question is, why didn't we just get it right from the get-go? Why do we always put a product? It seems like no matter what they do in college football, you put out a system, and it's like before it even takes place, we're like, it needs change. Like, why can't we just get it right the first time? But, Jim Phillips, the ACC commissioner, he actually said something that I've been saying all along. He said, quote, the NFL, which we believe is the highest level of football in our world, has a system that rewards divisional champions. You see it in Major League Baseball, too. It's not as if the system is so foreign. This shouldn't be used as a convenient rationale. It deserves a review, and we should talk about how it went, but it's not some exotic structure. And he's right. Because it benefited the Bucs, right? If this were college football and the NFL had rankings, the Bucs would have been ranked lower than the Commanders. You had a 12-win team on the road against a 10-win team. So you have the same issues in college that you do in the NFL. We just don't really talk or complain about the NFL as much. Now, do I think that, it should be restructured a little bit? I do. But I'm also not going to sit here, kick and scream and cry about it. I don't think Boise State should get a bye week over a team like Texas or Penn State or Ohio State. I mean, Ohio State kind of cost themselves by losing to Michigan, so they don't really have much to ride on. But, the system is a little bit flawed. Do I think it set us up for the best matches of the college football playoff? No. I'd like to see some change in the college football world. I'd prefer, honestly, 8 teams, no bye weeks. That first week was horrible. All we did complain about it anyways. Every game was a double-digit spread. Don't get me wrong, I'm always down for more football, but we can eliminate the byes. Either go 8 and no byes or get to 16 and no byes. So I don't know what's going to happen with college football, but it looks in 2025 that it's going to be the same system we have this year. And then next year we get to have all the same conversations about college football sucks, this format sucks, yet we watch it and continue to give them high ratings. They're higher than ever. Has college football gotten better or worse? It's definitely a discussion. I think for some people, you think it's gotten better. Some people will say it's gotten worse. I think the only thing that I don't like about college football right now, because I love the fact that more teams have a chance to win a championship. I love the fact that we have more games. You're extending the season. I like that. I always felt college football was too short. Ended in November. You had no games really in December other than, the chicken noodle soup bowls. And then New Year's Day, you had all your big bowl games, and then it was over. It just went by so quick. But now you get the playoff games in December. You've got some in January. The season's going to, the end of January. I like that. I'm okay with that. Give me more college football. But what I don't like, and it's kind of bothered me a little bit, and maybe it's a little bit of biasness because I have a disdain for Ohio State, as most of you know. But I think the one thing that I really love about college football so much are the rivalries. They're more intense. They're weird. They're different. College football rivalries are just different than the NFL, right? Look at the Bucks. Chris Mathis did a video. What team do you hate the most? And was asking Bucks fans. They all said Saints. Right? Let's say the Saints are your rivalry. The Bucks and Saints compare to nothing in college football like Alabama Auburn, Alabama LSU, Florida State, Florida Georgia, Michigan Ohio State. The college football rivalries are just better. And I do hate the fact that you don't have to beat your rival anymore and you can play in a championship game. You don't have to win your conference or even appear in the conference title game to be in a championship game. So, yeah, I dislike that a little bit. But then when you look at the NFL, you don't have to win your division to get into the playoffs, and you don't have to win your division to win a Super Bowl, a la 2020 Tampa Bay Buccaneers, right? So they didn't win their division. They did play in a conference championship because you have to get to the Super Bowl, so you got to do one out of the two. But that's the one thing. The rivalries in college football have now been watered down. Look at last year's national championship. You had Michigan taking on Washington. Well, Michigan, to get there, they had to go through an undefeated Ohio State. They lose to Ohio State. They're not getting into the playoff. Mainly because the beginning of their schedule was a bunch of cupcakes. They were going to be one loss and they were done. Now, don't get me wrong. I like the fact that we have a chance to have a couple mistakes and be able to rebound from them. It does keep your interest in the game a little bit longer. LSU, for example, on opening day, they lose to USC. Well, they don't feel like their season's completely done because you can have a couple mistakes. Where in the old world, you really couldn't. Remember in the BCS world, it was like one and done. So I don't miss that. But I do think we're watering the rivalries down a little bit, and that to me kind of sucks. If you look back at the 4-team playoff, you had a lot of blowouts in the semifinals. The national championship game was always right for the most part. This year's national championship game, you got 2 teams that wouldn't have been in the 4-team playoff. So I think whether it's better or worse, it's kind of debatable, but don't expect any changes next year. Expect the same topics on the radio about college football next year as you hear this year. It's going to be the same thing. We got a couple text messages asking for my predictions in the college football national championship. I can do that. We can do predictions. We were going to do those earlier, but I kind of went behind here a little bit. Let's do predictions. We'll do those coming up next. I want to talk NFL playoff predictions. We'll do the college football national championship prediction. And we'll also rank the games this weekend of which ones I'm looking forward to the most, which ones I think are going to be the best games. We can go through all of that. I changed one of them today. The Chiefs and Houston's game, the Chiefs and Texans, I've been going back and forth on. I finally solidified which direction I'm going to go. And I'm going to go against the numbers on this one. But my predictions for all of the games, plus Ohio State and Notre Dame, that is coming up next. And also, I want to get into Jameis Winston. He's got a new commercial that came across my algorithm on social media last night. Might be the best commercial of all time. I mean, it is the most perfect endorsement for Jameis Winston. As soon as I saw it, I sent it to everybody on the staff. I'm like, you guys got to see this. I sent it to T-Crash yesterday. I don't know if he played it or not, but I'm like, dude, this is an absolutely incredible audio. So I want to play that for you before the show ends.
Restrictions apply.
Experience the Anajar Levine difference. Call 1-800-747-FREE.
Live across Tampa Bay, Nick Wise on 95.3 WDAE and AM 620.
It is prediction time for the divisional round and also the national championship game between Ohio State and Notre Dame, which is going to be Monday night. And you will be able to hear that right here on 95.3 WDAE and AM 620. If you prefer the radio coverage over the TV, we would love to have you. That's going to start the pregame at 6:30, kickoff 7:30, which will be probably closer to 8, and the commercials will stretch it out, and the game will still go to midnight. You know, they used to start the game at 8 o'clock. It'll still end at the same time because they've added so many commercials. You know, we all complain about the college football playoff, and we complain about NIL. Nobody really complains about really the most annoying thing of college football this year. The 2-minute timeout. Literally designed to run more commercials. And that's what happens when, these big TV deals happen. The Big Ten getting $7 billion from Fox, NBC, and CBS. The SEC getting, somewhere near the same with ESPN. More commercials. Commercials for everybody. All right, so I'm in a pool, an NFL pool. I do it every year. Was fortunate. This is my third year doing it. Happened to win it one year, and it was 2 years ago. Thank God Mahomes won the Super Bowl, took the points over the Eagles. You always got to take Mahomes and the points, right? Won me the most money I'd ever won in one of these pools because they're hard to win. It's luck half the time. But in the pool, you got to pick the money line, the spread, and the over-under. So each game has 3 points on the line, or 1 point for each one, right? You get 1 point for the spread, 1 for the total, 1 for the money line. So each game worth 3 points. You can get 1 out of 3, 2 out of 3, or all 3. So filling it out this weekend, here's what I did. First off, let's rank the games of which ones I'm looking forward to the most. Number 4, Kansas City and Houston. Not looking forward to that one, really. I shouldn't say I'm not looking forward to it because it is playoff football, so I am looking forward to that. But out of the 4 games that we have, this one I am probably least excited about. The Chiefs right now, minus 8.5, according to the Hard Rock Bet app. I was originally going to take the Texans and the points. And then I realized, because, the Chiefs often don't cover the spread when it's a touchdown or more. There are 2 teams that are under 500 when it comes to covering the spread in the playoffs. Guess who they are? The Chiefs and Texans. So they're playing each other. So one of them's got to break. And it really came down to this factor for me, why I'm switching my pick to the Chiefs minus 8.5. And it's simple. I do not trust C.J. Stroud in the cold. I don't. You can be like, well, what do you mean? He played at Ohio State. It's cold. Yeah, but he's from L.A. And I think back to those November games that he had at Ohio State. He played well, but he didn't win. Specifically to Michigan. Went 0-2. And guess what he is in the NFL in games that are below 30 degrees? He's 0-2. He lost 31-10 in the playoffs last year, and he lost 27-19 to Kansas City this year. Now, I think there's a little bit of a disadvantage with that Kansas City game this year because, Tank Dell got hurt that game. It got a little emotional there, and, that could have played a factor for sure. But I have a hard time trusting C.J. Stroud in the cold. Now, historically, Houston is actually pretty good in games when it's 30 degrees or below. They haven't played in many, but they're 2-0 in those games historically. But I'm gonna take the Chiefs minus 8.5, and I'm gonna go under in that game because the Texans had an offensive explosion last week. I don't think they can do it 2 weeks in a row. I think the Chiefs defense is going to be ready to play, having that week off. And, it's the Chiefs coming off of a bye. They're going to be prepared. But I don't think the Texans can do it 2 weeks in a row. Plus, it's going to be cold. They're not going to be playing inside like they were last week in Houston. I think it presents a couple more challenges. I'll go under the 41.5 in that game. And because I have the Chiefs covering, obviously, I have the money line as well. All right, the game that I'm looking forward to next the most would be the Rams and the Eagles. The Rams are getting 6 points right now. Actually, 6.5 it's gone up to on the Hard Rock sports bet. I think the Rams are scary. I'll put it this way. As a guy that grew up in Detroit, wants to see the Lions do good things, I'd rather the Lions play the Eagles. The Rams are scary to me right now. They're hot. The defense looks good. And Jared Verse could be Defensive Rookie of the Year. Loved him at Florida State. Love him on the Rams. Dude is a monster. Now, he did say some things about the Philly fans. He's not going to be a fan favorite this weekend at Lincoln Financial Field. But the Rams are scary. The Eagles are one-dimensional. Snow is possible. I think if there is one underdog that is most likely to win outright, I think it's the Rams. However, the snow and the spread shifting the way it is makes me think the Eagles win outright. So I'll take Eagles money line, but I'm going to take the Rams in the points. I don't know how the Rams can do in the snow. Stafford's been there before. One of the toughest quarterbacks in the NFL. I don't really worry about him too much. It's when you got the better quarterback out of the two in the game getting points, it's hard not to take the points, right? So I do think the Rams cover. Now, I could be a homer and say the game I'm looking forward to the most is Washington and Detroit wanting to see the Commanders lose, but the game I'm looking forward to the most really is the Ravens and Bills. But I do think that the Lions -9, I think, look, I've been going back and forth on this one. I could see it being a close game. The bet that I like the most in this game is the under because everybody thinks it's going to be a shootout. But I think Washington's going to try to do the same thing they did to the Buccaneers. And the defense of the Lions is pretty comparable to the Buccaneers. I think they're going to do their best to keep the Lions offense off the field the way they did to the Bucs. I think possessions for both teams will be limited. I do think everybody's going to go for it on fourth down. I think there will be a couple stops on each side. So I do like the under in the Detroit-Washington game. Plus the over-under is like a college football game. It's 55.5. I like the under in that game. The reason I think Detroit can cover is because Jaden Daniels going into that atmosphere as a rookie, it's going to be different than what he came into at Raymond James Stadium last week. That was one of the things I was most... I don't like to criticize fans, right? I was the host on the station that had everybody's back when it came to the Rays and the Rangers a couple years ago. I defended you guys till the death of me. I will die on that hill. Screw the national media. I don't fault you. It was a horrible setup for us. But last week, I'm disappointed because it's football. I don't know if we've just gotten spoiled here and we're like, it's the wild card round. We'll go to the next one. But, man, the amount of Commanders. I wasn't there in person. I prefer games on TV. But the cheers that were taking place anytime the Bucs got a penalty, the MVP chants that happened for Jaden Daniels, it was disappointing. It showed me we got a lot of work to do as a sports town. And I know a lot of people from the other areas move here. I get it. I'm guilty of it. And that is definitely something you're always going to have to deal with. But it drives me crazy. I didn't like that the Bucs didn't have a true home atmosphere. And Jaden Daniels is going into the Den this week, and I think it's going to be a different. And I know he's played in the SEC, but now he's going into an SEC environment, I guess you could say, against NFL talent. It's going to be different. I don't know if he'll be able to handle it as a rookie, but then again, he's also not a normal rookie. So I'm going to take the Lions -9. Not confident in it, though. And I'll take the Lions money line. All right, the game we're all excited the most for. Ravens, Bills. The Ravens are -1.5 right now. The team that wins the rushing battle going to win this game. You're going to have the elements in the game, the snow, the cold. Are snow games overrated? I think they are. People get so excited about them. Is that a hot take? They're cool for like the first couple of minutes, and then you realize they're playing 1930s football and just running it every time, and they can't complete a pass. I don't know. I don't get excited over that anymore. Snow games are cool for a moment. You're like, oh my God, look at that weather. It's crazy. There's 6 feet of snow on the field. And then you're like, oh, the score is 3-3 in the fourth. Snow games are a little overrated. But I like the Ravens in this game because they are the better rushing team. The Ravens have almost 900 more rushing yards than Buffalo. So I'm going to take the Ravens in that game to cover the 1.5. I'm going to take them on the money line. And I'm going to go under 51. Because I do think both teams are going to try to run the football effectively. And that should take time off the clock and limit possessions. So I'm going to go under 51 in that game. The national championship on Monday night. Ohio State, Notre Dame. What is the latest spread on that game? I want to make sure I have it right because I had it at 9.5, but it might have changed since then if you haven't gotten your bet in. At 9.5, I was leaning towards Notre Dame. I can't even find it on the app. Here we go. The current odds, it's 8. It's down to 8. They're trying to sucker you into taking Notre Dame because it's Notre Dame +8 at +100. Anytime I see that, I feel like they're trying to sucker me in. Look, take Notre Dame. You're getting even money. It's a setup. They think Ohio State's going to murder Notre Dame. Wouldn't be shocked at all if Ohio State wins this one big. But if I'm going to put money on it, I'm going to take the points because it is a national championship game. The only reason I think Notre Dame can win this game is based on what happened a year ago. At Notre Dame Stadium in front of Touchdown Jesus, Notre Dame had 10 men on the field on the, a 4th down play? I don't know if it was 4th down. It was the final play of the game. No time left. Ohio State snapped the ball, ran it up the middle, scored a touchdown to win the game. I think by a point. And Notre Dame only had 10 men on the field. They screwed it up. They had a perfect opportunity to take down Ohio State in the beginning of the year last year. They messed it up. And I think the Notre Dame players wanted Ohio State. In fact, a couple of them said it. Ohio State's the team that we wanted. Now, be careful what you wish for. If I'm Notre Dame, I'm coming out in those winged helmets, maize and blue. Scare them. It's hard for me to say Notre Dame can win this game. But at the same time, everyone's picking Ohio State. That's a boring pick. I think Notre Dame can do this. I don't know why I got a feeling, but I got a feeling that Marcus Freeman can get it done. I think he's the better coach. And I know people will, well, what do you mean? Ryan Day's like 45-1 in the Big Ten, or 45-2 outside of Michigan and Notre Dame. No, he's 45-1 against teams not named Michigan. But it's a bunch of scrubs at the bottom of the Big Ten that he's beating. In a big game, I think I trust Marcus Freeman more. This might backfire on me, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to go with the ballsy pick here. I'm going to say Notre Dame wins this game. And that's not even me being biased. I have this gut feeling that I think they're going to win. I hate both of these teams. This is the worst national championship for me. I don't like any of them. But Marcus Freeman makes Notre Dame a little bit more likable than Ryan Day. But for some reason, I think Notre Dame can do this. We'll find out Monday. Like I said, you can hear the game right here on 95.3 WDAE and AM 620. All right, Jameis Winston. I teased the commercial that he's doing, his new endorsement. You got to hear this. I'll play it for you next.
Tampa Bay Sports Radio, 95.3 WDAE and AM 620. Tampa Bay Sports Radio 95.3 WDAE and AM 620 presents the One Grand Slam. Listen for your chance to win $1,000 at the top of every hour, weekdays 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Got a chip or crack in your windshield? Call the Glass Doctor. We bring 3 decades of auto glass excellence to your doorstep. Why drive for service when our mobile glass shop on wheels brings leading edge equipment and expertise to you?
Call the Glass Doctor, will fix your paint. Oh, yeah.
Did you know your skin is the largest organ of your body? Huh? That's why you should shower with Old Spice Super Hydration Body Wash instead of plain old bars.
Always right, but he's always entertaining. The Nick Wise Show, 95.3 WDAE and AM 620.
Ain't that the truth? I ain't always right, but I try to be entertaining on a Saturday here till 11 o'clock. It is the Nick Wise Show. Chris and Casey coming up next at 11, and then they're on till 1 o'clock. Then Rock Riley will take over. I believe Rock Riley's got one of the Glazers joining him today, which will be pretty cool to listen to. And then Aaron Jacobson will come in at 1 o'clock. No, I'm sorry, 2 o'clock. So we're live and local till 3 today, talking all your Tampa Bay sports. You got the Lightning in action tonight against the Detroit Red Wings. Normally when a team from the North comes to town, they take over the arena. I've seen Montreal come in and do it, not during the Stanley Cup Finals, but during a regular season game, I've seen it. You've seen Chicago do it. Boston does it. Detroit does it all the time. I don't think there will be the Detroit takeover tonight because I think the Lions might have bailed you out. The Lions are at 8 o'clock. Lightning and Red Wings are at 7 o'clock. I think Red Wing fans are going to sit this one out. So the Lightning should have the home ice advantage against the Northern team. I don't expect the takeover. I got a couple friends that are going to that game, and they wanted to watch the football game, but their ticket prices for the Lightning dropped a little bit, and they don't want to eat the $70. So I know the ticket prices did go down once that game was in. It's kind of crazy how the NFL, can play a factor in the NHL. The Lions have an effect on the Red Wings and the Lightning tonight. But I think there will be more Lightning fans there because of that game, which is not something you typically see at Amalie Arena when a team from the North comes to play. All right, so Jameis Winston did an incredible endorsement, and it came across my feed yesterday. It was for the big game. It's a food endorsement. Somebody sent it to me, and then like 10 minutes later, it came through my algorithm, and I'm like, oh my God, this is absolutely incredible. It is the most Jameis Winston commercial ever. Jameis Winston continues to be must watch on social media. He gives me a good laugh every single time I see him because he's just a goof. And this is no different. Derek, if you could, please play the commercial from Jameis Winston.
What's up, y'all? Jameis here. As you make your plans for the big game, go right now to get a pound of free crab legs with the purchase of $250 or more from Fulton Fish Market, an official partner of SFC. So go now to FultonFishMarket.com/free crab.
I mean, does it get any better than that? Jameis Winston doing a free crab commercial. We all know Jameis Winston loves his crab legs. We all know what happened to him when he was at Florida State. Brilliant marketing by whatever it was, Fresh Market. I've already forgot who it was, but brilliant marketing because you see Jameis Winston. First off, it's must watch. I'm going to continue watching it, whether it's a commercial or not. And then the fact that he's holding crab legs in his hand on camera doesn't get any better than that. Well done, Jameis Winston. You continue to impress me every time I hear you speak. I really do. The guy's he's comedy gold. We're talking Notre Dame, Ohio State in the national championship. It's like evil versus evil, right? Unless those are one of your teams, those are probably two teams you could care less about. But I also brought up the fact that Marcus Freeman makes Notre Dame a little bit more likable. Where with Brian Kelly, we hated Notre Dame. Brian Kelly's now with LSU. You probably dislike him even more because we're in the South. And I got to thinking about it. When it comes to sports figures, who do you dislike? I don't want to use the word hate, but I'll use it. Who do you hate the most in sports? Can be a player, can be a coach. 888-546-4620. Because I got to thinking about it. For me, I think it's Brian Kelly. I really dislike the guy. The way he left Notre Dame, I thought was just not right. They had a chance to make the college football playoff when he left. He was like, nope. I have a better chance at winning in the South with LSU. Which a couple years ago was true. But I think NIL has kind of balanced things out a little bit. And now Notre Dame is playing for a national championship. And Jaden Daniels, who we couldn't win the SEC with at LSU, is one of 5 rookies to win a playoff game on the road, is the star of the NFL when it comes to rookie quarterbacks. And so everybody but Brian Kelly is winning. Brian Kelly couldn't put a good defense together to win anything with Jaden Daniels under center. I think Brian Kelly is one of, if not the most hateable guy in my book of people. I dislike him. 888-546-4620 is the phone number. Who is your Brian Kelly that you just can't stand. You know, when Brian Kelly did the press conference and he's like, my family, dude, you're not from the South. Give it up. If Brian Kelly was still at Notre Dame, I wouldn't be able to watch Monday because I don't know which coach I want to punch in the face more. You know, Just for Men, Ryan Day, Ryan Beard Day, or Brian Kelly. They're both, but Brian Kelly's I despise. You can also text in on the Bartow 4DA text line 82945, which we've already got a couple coming through. Let's go through some of these. Most hateable sports figures that you despise. And the reason we're talking about this is because Notre Dame being in the national championship, without Brian Kelly, I don't despise them as much. Right off the top, we got one for LeBron James. He's amazing, but all the super team moves makes it hard to root for him sometimes. Seth in Tampa. Yeah, I get that. But that's just kind of the way of the NBA. Everybody does it. It's not just LeBron James. It's really just kind of the way the NBA's gone. Super teams. That's why the NBA's down in ratings. Bill Belichick. His success with the Patriots is undeniable, but the Spygate scandal always leaves a sour taste in my mouth. That's from Chris in Clearwater. I can see why Bill Belichick's not likable. I do like him more on TV, though. I think he does a fantastic job on the, the Manning cast. I think he does a good job on there. And Bill on TV has like a personality. This one says Tom Brady from Tony and Temple Terrace. Says he's the GOAT, but as a Jets fan, watching him dominate us for 2 decades was pure pain. I totally understand that. I think most people here in Tampa Bay probably hated Tom Brady until he got here. Rick in St. Pete said, Nick Saban, I respect the guy, but as a diehard LSU fan, I can't forgive him for leaving us for Alabama. Well, he left you for the Dolphins and then went to Alabama and went on to become the best college football coach of all time. I could see how that is annoying. Mike in Tampa says, Aaron Rodgers, unbelievable talent, but the offseason drama is exhausting every year. I agree. You know, when Hard Knocks had the Jets a couple years ago, they made Aaron Rodgers likable. Then he got hurt, and you felt bad for him. But then he got hurt and had all of this time, and he's going on the Pat McAfee show, and he's saying all kinds of weird things, and he's a weird dude. He really is. And he's never going to change. Last one on the text, then we'll go to the phones. Deion Sanders. I respect Prime, but his over-the-top personality isn't for everyone. From Johnny in Tampa. No, I agree with that. I think he's entertaining. I love what he's done at Colorado. He's made Colorado relevant again. I think the last thing we all want is Dallas to hire Deion Sanders. I don't think it's going to happen. Jerry Jones doesn't like doing buyouts. The buyout at Colorado is pretty high. I think Kellen Moore ultimately is going to be the guy there. But the last thing we want is Deion Sanders in Dallas. I mean, ESPN already only covers Dallas. Imagine if Deion's there. It's going to be ramped up even worse. That's all you're going to hear is Deion in Dallas. And no one's going to like that. Nobody wants that. So let's all together pray Deion doesn't go to Dallas. We do not need that crappy organization with their horrible general manager getting any more airtime and publicity. Nobody wants it. Let's go to George in St. Pete. George, I got you on the Nick Wise show. Which sports figure do you can't stand? You despise him the way I despise Brian Kelly.
Nick, yes, sir. Yeah. Well, Nick, I'll give you 3 from each sport.
Okay.
1, Travis Kelce. Take a page from Barry Sanders. Every catch, you don't have to do that stupid first down signal. It just irritates me to death.
They all do it nowadays.
I know they do, but he does it so defiantly, like he's the only one to ever catch a pass.
I hate when they do it when they're like when a team is down by like 30 and they do it. It's like, what are you doing, man? The game's over.
Please stop. Of course, back when he played against us at the Trop, Derek Jeter, every close pitch, every inside pitch, he gives the puke face to the umpire, like he's disgusted. How dare they pitch inside to him every time?
That's fair.
Time. Oh, just irritates me to death. And lastly, I probably don't need to say too much about him, but Brad Marchand of the Bruins, he's about as irritating as Jock Itch watching him play.
Oh, I agree. I've always hated Brad Marchand. I think didn't he lick a guy's face?
He licked the Lightning guy.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, he licked
the Lightning player.
That's right. He licked
Yeah.
another man's face. And even before that, he just has that punchable face where you're like, can't stand Brad Marchand.
Yeah, I'm here with you, man. All right, Nick, thanks. Have a
Thanks,
good show.
George. I appreciate you. Oh, last one, just because I can't stand this guy either. Stephen Lakeland said, Urban Meyer, he's had success, but the scandals and controversies are too hard to ignore. There's another one from Latin St. Pete, Tim Tebow. How do you hate Tim Tebow? Tim Tebow's like the nicest guy ever. All right, that was a fun little segment. Chris and Casey coming up next at 11 o'clock. They're here. They're going to come in, and we'll do football Price is Right. We got 4 divisional round games, and we got a national championship game.
Radio in the palm of your hand. Wow. It's got my favorite thing.
Lyrics. Find out what everyone is talking about and get the new and improved free iHeartRadio app today.
All your best Bucks, Bolts, and Rays coverage. The Nick Wise Show on 95.3 WDAE and AM 620.
All right, wrapping up the show, and then Chris and Casey coming up next at 11 o'clock. They're on till 1 o'clock. Rock Riley coming in at 1, and then Aaron Jacobson at 2, so we're local till 3 o'clock today. Well, good morning, guys. Chris and Casey joining me for a game of, we're going to do, well, I can't call it college ticket prices right or NFL. It's football ticket prices right, because we got 4 NFL games, then we got the national championship I'm going to throw in there as well. So 5 games that we will do for this game. This is one of my favorite games that we play on the air. Before we get to it, what do you guys have coming up on the show today?
A lot of football, obviously. We've got a little bit on the Buccaneers. Thoughts on if Todd Bowles' job should change, if someone's opinion has changed on Todd Bowles after what we saw on Sunday night's game. College football action, too. Really a lot. I mean, a little bit of everything, truly, coming up.
Start to dig into the Bucks offseason, biggest needs. Heard you talking about that a little bit earlier and taking calls.
You guys just listening to my show and then jotting down the notes, repeating it?
Actually, we like to learn from the best,
I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. All right, well, let's play the final college football. I keep saying college because we usually do it college. Let's play the last football ticket prices right of the year. We are done after this.
Oh, man.
This is it. For all the marbles.
Don't remind me.
Who's going to be the champ? I know. The football season went by so fast.
The last couple nights have been so boring. There's been nothing on to watch.
It's been college basketball.
You don't listen to the drive yet. We tell you what's on tonight.
I like
every
college
night.
hoops. All right, let's start with today's matchup. Houston going to Kansas City, Arrowhead Stadium. Chiefs minus 9.5, according to ESPN Bet. Cheapest ticket into the game, Chris Mathis.
Cheapest ticket. I think it's lower than what we expect. I will go with $185.
That's $185. Casey Warner.
That was in my ballpark. I'm going to say $190.
The point goes to Chris Mathis. Cheapest ticket, $97.
Oh, under $100.
You got to think.
It's got to be cold.
Well, it's freezing. It's going to be in the 20s. The Chiefs have been to the divisional round, and they've hosted it so many years in a row now. You know, their fans are like, we'll go next week.
They're spoiled.
It's a Saturday day game.
Saturday day game. It's the Texans. So that is, I'll give you the hint, that is the cheapest ticket on the card.
All right.
All right, coming up next, the Washington Commanders. They travel to Detroit, 8 o'clock on Fox. Detroit's a 9-point favorite. It's at Ford Field. Casey Warner, cheapest ticket into the game today.
I've been hearing a little bit about how the prices up there in Detroit have been going up, probably especially since you've lived there, Nick.
I will
can
say
imagine.
this is the highest priced NFL ticket.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I'm shocked by that, honestly.
Why are you shocked by that?
Washington. I mean, nobody's giving Washington
it has nothing to do with Washington.
A fighting chance. More
it
of
has
Detroit.
to do with a team that's lost for their entire
and they're
lives.
finally getting home playoff
and they're finally
games.
getting home playoff games.
All right, I'm going to have to go 256.
Ooh, that's high. That's high. I'm going to go 222.
Casey Warner was $1 off.
Wow.
$2.55.
Oh, my goodness.
Cheapest ticket into the game. Scoreboard is even. Now we move into Sunday's matchup. The LA Rams take on the Philadelphia Eagles at Lincoln Financial Field. Philly right now, 6.5-point favorite on the Hard Rock Bet app. Cheapest ticket into the game, Chris Mathis.
If I'm a Rams fan, you couldn't pay me to go to Philly and watch that game in my Rams jersey or gear. You couldn't pay me. You couldn't pay for my ticket, couldn't pay for my airfare, none of that. I will say...
This guy's so scared of everything.
175. 175.
I would love to dress Chris up in the opposing team because he's the nicest guy in the world, and just put one of those body art cameras on him, like the police wear, and just see what happens to him.
Put one on each, every angle. I feel safe then because people are going to think twice.
Wear a Jared Verse jersey to the Eagles.
What was the cheapest ticket you said, Chris?
175.
175. Casey?
Current forecast is 36 degrees, 90% chance of snow. With that being said, I'm going to say 113.
Chris Mathis with the point, 168. Cheapest ticket into L.A. and Philadelphia. All right, probably the game of the weekend. This is going to be a really good game. Baltimore and Buffalo. Trip to the NFC Championship game on the line to, we assume, play the Kansas City Chiefs and try to knock them off from their third Super Bowl in a row. It's in Orchard Park. Baltimore right now, -1.5 on the road. This game going to be on CBS, 6:30 tomorrow. Cheapest ticket into the game, Casey Warner.
199.
199. Chris Mathis.
Oh, I don't know if it's that high. It should be, but I think with the weather playing a part into this, I'm going to go 180. 180.
Who's got the lead right now?
I do. By one.
Oh, he just got it. He won.
I won?
There you go.
What was it?
150. All right.
Well done.
Hold on, though. We're going to do a bonus.
Oh, we got Monday night's game.
No applause for Chris Mathis.
Oh.
Cheapest
Stop
ticket.
laughing over there, Bob.
Cheapest ticket for the national championship game Monday night. Ohio State, Notre Dame. Current line on the Hard Rock Bet app was Notre Dame plus 8. 7:30 ESPN. This one's worth 2 points. Just
Let's
so
do
Chris
3.
Mathis can't win.
Let's do 3.
All right, 3.
Let's say 3.
Cheapest ticket into the game, Chris Mathis.
Man, I have no idea what these tickets go for.
I'll give you one hint.
Over 300?
It is higher than all the NFL games.
Where's this game at? Where are they playing it at?
Atlanta.
Atlanta, that's right. Okay.
Indoor, don't have to worry about the
Very
weather.
nice stadium.
This is a toughie.
Chick-fil-A will be open because it's on a Monday.
Oh, that's a huge deal.
Family-friendly menu. Thanks, Arthur Blank. $5 beers. Everybody should be doing that.
I'm going to go with $380. $380.
$380, he says. Cheapest ticket to see Ohio State and Notre Dame in the College Football National Championship. Casey Warner.
With that said, I'm going to go $319.
You guys aren't even close.
Not even close.
$1,719.
No, sir.
Cheapest ticket into Mercedes-Benz Stadium to see that game.
Oh, my goodness.
I wouldn't pay that if I were a diehard. That's way too high.
What's the most you would pay to get into a football game? Because that's too high for me, too. Because if you think about it, that ticket's probably way up in the nosebleeds. You're just watching it on TV anyways. I saw something for Detroit and Washington today. Like, standing room tickets were $500.
I wouldn't pay
standing room for a single ticket. And, for standing room, you got to run in there, get your spot, and the second you get out to go get a beer or take a
bathroom,
you're losing your spot.
Yep.
You're really not going to see. Like, to me, it's not worth it. Like, the TV coverage, that game will be on in 4K tonight.
I would pay.
What I got to go for?
I would pay $1,000 for a Super Bowl. I would do that. That's it.
Really?
Wouldn't go over.
$1,000 a Super Bowl. You ain't getting into a Super Bowl for $1,000.
Exactly.
Maybe several hundred here. 400 or 500 at most.
Yeah, the TV
ticket,
coverage nowadays is just so good. It's like, why pay all that money? You got to pay to
The
park.
experience once. You got to do it once, I would think.
To me, though, the Super Bowl isn't a great experience. To me, an NFC or AFC championship game would be better. Because
Especially
the
if it's at your
NFL,
home.
the Super Bowl is a show. It's it's corporate seats. It's not high level like fandom.
It's a terrible halftime show.
It depends. The Dr. Dre one a couple years ago in LA was awesome.
Katy
Who do we got
Perry's
this year?
was really good.
Who's our
Katy
halftime
Perry's.
show
This
this
guy
year?
just said Katy Perry's was
Hers
really
was
good.
great, man.
I'm not surprised.
Wasn't she the one where she dressed as like a fish or a shark?
She did
that
do
was
that.
with the Sharks.
That wasn't
the one
an
shark
awesome
that
Super
didn't
Bowl.
know
But then
what they
also-
were doing.
Didn't she have like a line? She was writing a line. That was
Yeah.
awesome, dude.
I think
Cool effects.
Prince in the Rain was the best
that was
one.
awesome. Yeah,
At the
that was cool.
Rose Bowl. Doesn't get any better than that.
I love Bruce Springsteen, but I didn't care about his Super Bowl halftime. This is maybe the 90s, early 2000s.
This year it's going to be Kendrick Lamar, which is going to be pretty crazy.
Yeah.
I don't know if
I'm not real excited over it, honestly.
Of course you are.
I'm not.
Why? He's like literally the best rapper out right now,
one
not
of the
named
best in the
Eminem.
game.
I don't know. I didn't want a rap show for some reason. Maybe sprinkle in a little Kendrick Lamar, but he was just in it as a guest like 2-3 years ago.
was.
Too fresh. Too fresh.
He's on top
man.
of the world. When you murder Drake in a rap battle,
Yeah.
you get to be the halftime
That's right.
show. All right, Chris and Casey coming up next. They're at the top of the hour. Again, remember, we're local till 3 o'clock this afternoon. Rock Riley going to take over at 1 o'clock and Aaron Jacobson at 2 o'clock. My name is Nick Wise. If you missed anything on the show, you can go back and check it out on the free iHeartRadio app. I will talk to you next weekend.
WRUB HD3 Clearwater, and the mighty AM 620 WDAE St. Petersburg, an iHeart radio station. Everything Tampa Bay sports. We are 95.3 W237CW Pinellas Park, WRUB HD3 Clearwater, and the mighty AM 620 WDAE St. Petersburg, an iHeart radio station.
Good morning, Tampa Bay. We can say that for a little bit over an hour until it's afternoon. Chris Mathis, Casey Warner back here with you guys on the airwaves until 1 o'clock this afternoon. Very happy to have you here. Unfortunately, not a pretty day outside. Once again. It seems to be a trend, Casey. I don't know what's going on.
The way in.
I don't know what's going on, man. Little foggy. Yes, it is winter. And, you know, it was tough to see the Buccaneers lose the way that they did last week. Not what we wanted. A loss is a loss. I didn't care how they won the game. Just wanted them to win the game, and they came up short. So, you know, life moves so quick, and in this career field too, Casey, it's just boom, bada bing, one thing to the next, and you don't really have too much time to sit there and think about it. But come Wednesday of this week, it hit me that the Buccaneer football season was over with, and I was just... I was sad. I was upset, man.
Yeah, I was telling Nick right there as we ended the Nick Wise show. It seems like the last few weeks we've had football on Thursday nights, Friday nights. We've been so spoiled with football just every single night, some kind of prime time game, some kind of playoff game, and it's slowly but surely dwindling down, and I don't like it.
No, neither do I. And, you know, it does make every single game matter that much more. You're that much more glued to the television. As the playoffs continue, which they will continue this afternoon, we'll talk about the NFL playoffs. We'll talk about Monday night's college football national championship game as well, Casey. But right now we're talking about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and, you know, the season not being exactly what they had expected because it didn't end up with at least one playoff win as we had hoped. So you guys can join us all morning long, 888-546-4620, or text into the Bartow Ford DAE text line. We'll also read your text. Start that text with DAE. Casey, I mean, the opinion for me doesn't change on Todd Bowles after that loss. It was exactly what we thought as far as him being a good head coach, not a great head coach. That showed again on Sunday against the Commanders. All time, Todd Bowles is a head coach with the Buccaneers that's 3 games above 500, which is, it's good enough. It's not great. It's good enough. And also, we already knew that the time management, the timeout usage has always been questionable with Todd Bowles as the head coach of the Bucs. That didn't change on Sunday night against the Commanders. It did not. And we talked about it last week. We said you can't come out in the first half, play somewhat sluggish, and expect to make key adjustments at halftime and come out and beat the Commanders in the second half. And we saw that on Sunday night.
Yeah, I mean, if you would have asked me about a month ago when I was filling in on Wise and Mathis, I remember I was very staunch, and I said that you got to go with Liam Cohen. There's no way you can let the young, up-and-coming offensive mind, especially in a season like this with the Buccaneers' arguably best offense in history, there's no way you can let that mind go. And I've honestly been giving some guys benefit of the doubt. You know, Todd Bowles has done he's done his best with what he can work with. He's made it to the playoffs. He's had a lot of injuries. And a point that Nick Wise brought up earlier on his show, where are you going to find another defensive coordinator like Todd Bowles? You're probably not right now if you go the Liam Cohen route. But the time management reared its ugly head again in that Commanders game. And it made me think, could he be one of the worst time management coaches currently in the league right now? And he's got to be up there with him. I mean, I don't watch other teams like the Rams and the Bucs as close as I do those teams, but Todd Bowles, he's a 61-year-old head coach, and there's not that many of his age anymore. It's trending towards a younger league, a younger offensive-minded league, and he's one of the few older defensive-minded head coaches that have stuck around. And I just think Liam Cohen has too much upside. I really do. So, I mean, I'm torn. I'm really torn, but I'm still leaning towards Liam Cohen a little bit.
Leaning towards Liam Cohen. Okay, well, I'll say this. I do agree with the thing you had mentioned, where you're going to find a defensive coordinator quite like Todd Bowles. Number one, this is a league that's changing and becoming more offensive-minded as it is. That's why there are so many offensive coordinators and these discussions for the openings with head coaching jobs across the National Football League. And we'll talk about that a little bit later on as far as where we think some coaches end up, how those job vacancies get filled. But I will say this. it's going to be hard to find a defensive coordinator. And yes, you can promote the next guy, or maybe Coach Foote could be the next guy to be the defensive coordinator. It's just a lot to ask, and the defense is already not great as it is. So if you're going to go find a new defensive coordinator, it's a fresh start for a group of guys that on the defensive front are already so young and not proven yet, Casey. And I think that's the biggest question mark for this Buccaneer team right now is when will that pass rush show up? So Todd Bowles, in my opinion on Bowles, has not changed based off the one game. I went into it on Sunday against the Commanders, knowing what to expect from him, knowing that if the Buccaneers did have a lead and held on to it past the third quarter, they were going to be just fine. I will say this about Todd Bowles and giving him props is one thing he's great at is getting the most juice from the orange that you can possibly get. When you look at the roster defensively, they had so many injuries that stacked up throughout the season, and you were just waiting on when will this team get healthy? When will this team get back to form that we hoped, as we saw in week one? And it never really got back to that point. And even with Antoine Winfield Jr. getting back and playing for a couple of games, he wasn't the same guy he had been last season especially. So I think Todd Bowles is very good at getting the most out of his roster. The locker room loves him. We heard Levante David on Monday talk about that. He says nobody in the locker room, which I also take with a grain of salt. Who's going to go out there and say anything bad about a very respectable man in Todd Bowles?
Seems like he's built a good culture. He's built a good culture, and I understand that. And it makes you wonder how tight-knit the locker room actually is, even with all the injuries. And we've heard about the culture this year. It's been great. I mean, we had Sal Paolantonio, national NFL insider, on Pat and Aaron the other day, and he spoke about how impressed he was with the Buccaneers culture. And that's great. But if it's not getting you to the Super Bowl, then at the end of the day, you got to look at the upside. You got to look further down the road. And I think that's what I'm kind of doing here. I'm looking further down the road, not just one season ahead. Let's say the Bucs go into 2025 and they have maybe one or two more pieces on the defense and they end up having the same amount of injuries. You got to ask yourself, is the ceiling just as high next season, or is the ceiling even better if they have a different mind in there? And there was a tweet that I sent you when we were planning out the show this week that I thought was very relevant and I thought made me think a lot about the whole job. It's from JC Cornell at Cornell NFL on X. And he says, Liam Cohen is 39, could potentially be the head coach for the Bucs for 2 decades, has Sean McVay potential. Coach Baker to his best ever season, throwing 41 touchdowns. But you want to keep your 61-year-old head coach, who only has a few years left in him, coached an awful defense that was literally bailed out by the offense game after game. While there's a lot of truth to that, he is exaggerating a little bit. I understand that he's a little bit older, but he does bring the juice. He does have a good culture established. But you just got to think about that potential, man. I mean, Sean McVay has completely changed the way people hire and look at young head coaches in this league. And you got to look at a Bucs team that has, according to Over the Cap, just $11 million in cap space expected this offseason. That's expected. There could be some restructures. There could be some guys let go that clears out some more, but just $11 million. Realistically, who are you going to bring in this offseason that's going to raise Todd Bowles' ceiling that much higher with borderline the same roster with just $11 million in cap this offseason? That's what you got to ask yourself.
Yeah, and I think to answer that question, though, aside from free agency, you got to hit big in the draft. You do. Yep. I think, and Jason Light has proven that when he does hit in the draft, he gets guys that come in and absolutely take over. We saw it this year. A couple of rookies came in, had big impacts, Graham Barton being one, Bucky Irving being another. As the season progressed, we saw a lot more from Jalen McMillan when it was a pivotal time for this offense, with Mike Evans getting banged up at times or Chris Godwin being out and them truly not having a third option. It had to be the rookie Jalen McMillan that stepped up, and he did so. So if Jason Light can hit big in the draft this year, come April, the Bucs can somewhat find enough pieces alone right there without having to really worry about too much money and free agency and trying to go out there and spend some money to make this roster better. I think the combination of, yes, that draft class being good, but also this team just getting healthy too. If you can have the defense healthy, and Jamel Dean, I don't know if we can ever see this man healthy. I hate to say it, but he's just not consistently healthy. And when he does play, it's a little bit better than average, but it almost seems bound to get another injury. I mean, it feels like every game he's at least coming off the field for a couple of plays. And I know I'm exaggerating a bit there, but it does, man. And it gets old because that's a piece that without Carlton Davis there this year and Zion McCollum having to step up to be the number 2 guy, Jamel Dean, when he was playing, should have and needed to be the number 1 corner, and he just wasn't. It was Zion McCollum who took over. So I think the answer there to... And we're going to have to see it all play out here in Tampa Bay. And you guys can chime in 888-546-4620 about your thoughts on Todd Bowles. Has your opinion changed on the head coach of this team? For me personally, Casey, they made the playoffs again. I know they didn't win the playoff game. But Todd Bowles, if he were to miss the playoffs next year or not win a playoff game next year, then I think that's the perfect time to say, all right, Liam Cohen, you're in. If Liam Cohen can hang in for one more year as the offensive coordinator as the Buccaneers, I would absolutely do that and be more than happy with that because I don't know if Todd Bowles will win more than a playoff game next year. And in that case, it kind of feels as if what we've heard of and what we know about the Tony Dungy era here in Tampa and then having John Gruden come in, take over, they won a Super Bowl his first year.
Right, yeah. And I mean, I think something big that doesn't need to go unnoticed this offseason is you talk about building through the draft and maybe not having as much cap room as some other teams and hitting it big in free agency, is can the Bucs hit on a defensive draft pick early in the draft, unlike they have the past couple of seasons? You look at Chris Braswell, very minimal addition to the defense this year. I mean, he showed some flashes, but overall didn't do anything to wow anybody like Bucky Irving did at his draft pick. You look at Yaya Diaby, a down sophomore season, had a much better rookie season than he did this past season coming off the edge. If the Bucs can hit on a defensive draft pick in the first couple rounds this coming off season, I think that does a lot for Todd Bowles. That does a lot for his scouting department, and that does a lot for him in not just the immediate future, but the future down the road as far as having his defensive scheme implemented throughout the years and not just focusing so much on an offense that flourished this year, but keeping that Buccaneers defense, what they've won Super Bowls off of, and what they need to build back to, because the defense looked very rough this past season, and that's not Buccaneer culture, and that's not Todd Bowles culture from a defensive mind.
Very good point. And when we think of Todd Bowles, his forte is defense. And when the defense goes out there, they play sloppy as they did for a good portion of this season. It makes you sit back and kind of question what the Buccaneers and their trajectory is under direction of head coach Todd Bowles. It is Chris and Casey here this morning live until 1 o'clock. Couple texts here on the Bartow Ford DAE text line before we hit the break. Let's go with, out of the 813, we let a lot of things slide when we like someone. Bucs players, but it's not winning the Lombardi. Bowles can't get us to the mountain. He gets us halfway-ish. So far, I mean, that's a fair assessment to make. He does get you. He gets you in the vicinity of the dance. He gets you to the front door of the big dance, but they haven't been able to open up that door and you walk in and go have fun. You haven't been in the big game yet.
It just depends what your standards are. I mean, you talk about a franchise like the Pittsburgh Steelers who have won 6 Super Bowls, and people are coming after Mike Tomlin after losing a playoff game this year. I mean, I wouldn't put the Buccaneers as the stature of like a Pittsburgh Steelers, but they've been pretty successful. They've made the playoffs 5 straight seasons now and won the NFC South 4 straight seasons. So I would say that's pretty successful, and for a Buccaneers franchise that was very down in the previous century, I'd say this century they've been quite one of the better franchises across the NFL.
Without a question, or without a doubt, and obviously it all started with Tom Brady. Once Brady left, it was who's going to step in, be the quarterback. We're going to see the true Todd Bowles, and here the Bucs are. They're in the playoffs. They're winning the NFC South time and time again, and it's been very impressive to see, but we do need to see, we're all hungry for that next step, and that is to get to the Super Bowl and ultimately win the Lombardi Trophy. It is Chris and Casey live until 1 o'clock. We'll be right back here after this 2-minute commercial break. Who or what was the MVP of this Buccaneers football season? We'll talk more Chris and Casey debate. Also, George and Apollo Beach. We see you. We'll get right to you.
Tampa Bay Sports Radio, 95.3 WDAE and AM 620. From the Cool Today Weather Center, cooltoday.com.
Your Max Defender 8 forecast is cloudy, breezy, but mild. Afternoon temperatures soaring into the low 70s for the first time in several days. Your chances for rain for the most part today remain low. We see an evening isolated chance for a shower, but we're expecting widespread downpours to sweep through the area during the day on Sunday. And so it'll make for a midday round of rain, drier before and after that, and much cooler temperatures right behind all of the rain. And that settles in for most of next week's forecast. I'm Max Defender 8 meteorologist Rebecca Berry.
This report is sponsored by Cordell and Cordell.
Cordell and Cordell, a domestic litigation firm, is a partner you can count on. Schedule a consultation by calling 866-323-7529 or visit us at CordellCordell.com. That's CordellCordell.com.
The new iHeart app.
Yeah, I've been playing around with it.
Love my radio, love my presets.
Thank you.
This is really easy to use.
Join the millions already on the new and improved iHeartRadio app and set your first preset. Plus, discover the new live radio dial, scan, lyrics, podcasts, playlists, and your favorite artist's radio.
Open the app and everything's right there. I love it.
The new and improved iHeartRadio app. It's everything you love about your car radio in the palm of your hand.
Go get it.
Start your year off stress-free and sell your home with a guaranteed offer from Mark Spain Real Estate. No showings, no open houses, and no stress. Go to markspain.com to get a guaranteed offer on your home today. That's markspain.com and start packing.
Lowe's knows how to help make your Super Bowl 59 party a touchdown. Let us help you prep your home to host with top brands like Charbroil, Blackstone, and LG, so you can be the MVP of game day. Plus, use the Lowe's app to find what you need for a seamless shopping run. Or huddle up with our Lowe's Red Vest associates to help make all your game time hosting decisions.
For more information about contests on this station, go to 953WDAE.com/rules. Chris and Casey live on 95.3 WDAE and AM 620.
There's a lot to be proud of, and in this moment that's hard to see, but there was a lot of young guys that are going to be on it that should build confidence for those guys, and knowing that who they are as players and as men in adversity situations to be able to step up like they did. So that's something to be proud of. And it just goes back to being disappointing and not making the plays when you need it the most.
Baker Mayfield on his thoughts following the season, the loss on Sunday to the Washington Commanders. He's disappointed, as we all are. That's why we are here this morning talking Buccaneer football with you. It's Chris Mathis, Casey Warner, and the Chris and Casey Show live until 1 o'clock right here on WDAE. We talked about an MVP for this Buccaneer football team this season. But first and foremost, we got George in Apollo Beach who wants to chime in on the Buccaneers. Good morning, George. What do you got for us, man?
What's up, George?
Hey, what's going on, guys? Good morning. Congratulations on getting some airtime on Saturday.
Appreciate that,
Thank you,
George.
sir.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, I kind of I agree with what you guys are saying about Bowles being like middle of the road, but I also feel like the past couple drafts have been really offense heavy. I mean, I know we've picked up, like Braswell and Tyke Smith and Savassier a couple years ago, but I really feel like, I don't know if it'll happen, but I wish we would go really defense heavy in this draft. Like I'd be down with first, second, and third rounds being an edge, a middle linebacker, and a corner. Like highly rated guys that could really help the defense because, as much as we talk about Bowles, he's kind of been handcuffed because our defense has gotten a little older in the past couple of years. But, I guess we just have to wait and see. But until then, it's go Bucks.
Yeah, thank you for the call, George. And absolutely, that's kind of what I was alluding to in our first segment when we were talking about Todd Bowles and my opinion changing. I think my opinion would change on Todd Bowles if they went a little more defensive heavy in the earlier rounds, even this year in the draft. This year, next year, let's say the Bucs have a similar season. They go defensive heavy in this year's 2025 NFL draft. They make the playoffs, win another playoff game. Keep Todd Bowles around. Give him another chance at building that defense. I think they haven't gone defensive heavy, just like you stated there. I think, getting guys like Graham Barton, Bucky Irving, solidifying that offensive line, Cody Mauch, guys like that. that has went a long way, and we've seen everything we've expected and more out of those guys on the offense. But can you get the same production from those guys on the defense out of those early picks? And we'll ultimately have to see that in this year's upcoming draft.
And the problem with that is that we've seen is the Buccaneers, when they have taken defensive guys, it's truly hit or miss.
Yep.
I mean, you look at guys like Logan Hall, Joe Tryon-Shoyinka. That didn't quite work out. Chris Braswell, yes, it was his rookie year. I didn't see enough from Braswell this season. Coming from Alabama, I expected a lot more. You have this standard from an Alabama guy. He didn't live up to the standard. He did get some reps as the season went on. Servassier Dennis is a guy who did play well. I was impressed with. Tyke Smith, a guy when he was on the field, did play well for this Buccaneers team. So it truly is, okay, you look at a group of $6 defensive players that just got drafted within the last 2-3 years. 2 or 3 are good, 2 or 3 are not proven, or maybe just don't have it. That's what we've seen so far. Now, guys that we do know have it are guys on the offensive side that helped elevate this offense this year, Casey. And I know I have my pick. I want to hear your pick, though, as far as who this MVP was of this Buccaneers season. So many different guys, so many different ways we could have went. You could say a defensive player. Could have said Todd Bowles if you wanted to. We even take coordinators. Maybe it's a most valuable person this year. We want to hear from you, Buccaneer fans. 888-546-4620. Text in Bartow4DAE text line at 82945. Start the text with DAE. But who is your MVP of the Buccaneer season?
My MVP being the most valuable player, without a doubt in my mind, when we were discussing what we were going to talk about this week and I was kind of brainstorming, the first thing that popped into my head was Bucky Irving. Bucky the Buccaneer. I just think there's no way that you can deny what Bucky Irving brought to this team more than anybody else this season. You look at a season that is 10th all-time on the Bucs single season rushing list. And not only that, out of those top 10 seasons, he averaged the most yards per carry with 5.4 yards per carry of all of the top 10 Bucs rushing seasons of all time. You look at a Bucs offense that last year was dead last in team rushing. The last couple years really have been brutal for the Bucs rushing attack. I mean, we've been going through running backs like crazy here in Tampa Bay, and that's something that's in this decade, the last couple decades, you honestly can't say. Having guys like Warwick Dunn in there for several years, Leonard Fournette, playoff Lenny showing up when you needed him most in the Tom Brady years. And now it's been a little inconsistent. Rashad White has been good, but there's been sometimes he just hasn't been good enough. He hasn't shown the burst, the explosion you want out of a running back. Bucky Irving brought that this season immediately. And I mean, we were already talking 1, 2, 3 games into the season, whether this guy should take over the backfield from Rashad White 80-20, 90-10, 100-0. I mean, that's how impressive he was, and you just can't deny that what he brought to an offense that desperately needed a shakeup from being dead last in rushing last year, and a complement added to a passing game that was already pretty good last year, and it just boosted the passing game even more this year, and he was outstanding. It looked like every time Bucky got the ball, he was shot out of a cannon. Fire them cannons, fire him Bucky Irving, keep it going next season. He was the MVP this year, without a doubt in my mind.
And he was incredible. And even if he did have a great game, a great performance, maybe even got banged up the next game, he still would play. He still fought so hard, and he always had that extra burst, that juice. The best part about Bucky is he never once slows down. It does not matter the score. It doesn't matter how many times he's been hit, been thrown around. Playing through injuries, which at first I was scared of. I was worried that maybe it would be too much for him. And
me too.
Here he is, shows up the next week, goes out.
Played every game,
looked as healthy as he possibly could considering the injuries, and was able to play at a high level. And it felt as if he had one good game, he'd back it up with another good game. We obviously wish we could have saw a little bit more from him in that game against Washington, but when you get in the playoffs and you're playing from behind and you're trying to make a play, you have Mike Evans, you start to try to throw the football a little bit more, obviously. We didn't see enough to Mike Evans as the game progressed, but I know the Commanders made some adjustments last week in the second half. So Bucky Irving was my option B, if you will, as the MVP of this Buccaneers season. Some people are saying Baker Mayfield on the Bartow4DAE text line. That's a great option, too. That was another pick for me. It could be Baker, but ultimately, it is. I mean, you look at Baker doing it back-to-back, having his best year. So I'm starting to see a trend here. Best rush attack for the Buccaneers in quite a long time. Best offense, finished top 3 in the NFL in total offense. Baker Mayfield looks really good. Bucky Irving, a rookie, came in, played at a high level. I'm going to credit that to my most valuable person, and that is Liam Cohen, first-year offensive coordinator for the Buccaneers. I mean, the guy was remarkable this year. Very creative with his play calls. I know maybe got a little too creative there on the one end around to McMillan last week. I didn't like that, but ultimately we're talking about an offensive coordinator who schemed up a great game plan for a group of guys that had several young stars on this offense that were still pivotal and played a big role in this team's and their success so far up to that point in the season heading into the game against Washington. I got to go Liam Cohen, first-year offensive coordinator, took over the play calling from Dave Canales the year prior, took that ground game from bottom of the barrel to top, 5-6, I believe it was, they finished this year.
Yep.
And to see him be able to do that was remarkable. And then in addition to that, see Baker Mayfield go out, have a really good season, his best of his playing career, with Chris Godwin missing the majority of the season, having to rely on guys like Sterling Shepard at receiver, still finding a way to make him, even though he wasn't a star, make his reps matter, make his catches, his targets matter. There were a couple of times on pivotal third downs, crucial downs, they found Sterling Shepard on quick out routes or drag routes, and he picked up the first down. Just finding ways to take advantage of his play calls and find a way to make this team be the best that they could possibly be. I got to credit Liam Cohen as my most valuable person, not player, person for the Buccaneers. A texter out of the 813 says Baker Mayfield is MVP for this season, and that's arguably fair as well. So many different guys, but when you think about the number of injuries, the question marks with the ground game, how could they utilize having three backs in the backfield? And Liam Cohen talked about this year how difficult that was. He was able to do it. Sean Tucker, Rashad White, Bucky Irving. When it came down to it, Liam Cohen found a way.
That was what was most impressive to me, is how it didn't get stale throughout the season. You look at a Bucs team that went into the bye week 4-6, or coming out of the bye week, they were 4-6, and a lot of questions. What are the Bucs going to look like in the second half of the season? Are they going to be able to come away with the division, losing twice to the Falcons? The offense never got stale. And at the beginning of the season, we were talking about guys like Jalen McMillan and how they were maybe a bust of a draft pick. He turns it on in the second half of the season. After the bye week, he's one of the main focal points of the offense, one of the main targets. He's a touchdown magnet for Baker Mayfield, and that's what's most impressive to me, and that's why it's very, very hard to see letting a name like Liam Cohen go, whether it's be your offensive coordinator or even promoting him to head coach. It's just going to be very tough to potentially see him walk out that door.
And it feels like a situation similar to the last year, except Liam Cohen's much better than Dave Canales, but you do question, you do wonder who will be able to step in for the coaching vacancy. So if you get rid of Bowles, you are looking for a defensive coordinator. I feel as if defensive coordinator are more difficult to come by these days as far as a great one. There's not very many young minds, defensive coordinators out there. They're traditionally the older coach, the guy who's been doing it this way for so long, and then the innovative guys tend to be the younger offensive minds. Liam Cohen does fit that build. We got a text from Coach Ward out of the 813. His MVP is the offensive line this year. It would be Bucky, but when the third-string running back came in and did as well as he did, that may be decided for the offensive line. Coach Ward. I think I think Sean Tucker did have success. I won't say quite as much as Bucky, but he did have success, and I didn't think Sean Tucker would do that at all. Here's an MVP, most valuable person out of the 813, Jason Light. Incredible draft class, signing Mike Evans and Baker Mayfield back. This team is supposed to be rebuilding, and this was 4 straight division titles. That's also, you know what? I didn't think about the Jason Light angle. You most definitely could pick.
You could say that every season about Jason Light, really.
Yeah, I mean, starting with his first ever year in which he drafted Mike Evans, and here we are 11 years later. Mike Evans had 1,000 yards receiving once again for the 11th consecutive year. So many different ways that Bucs fans could sway, go, lean, and we see that here with you and I. You're going Bucky Irving as your most valuable player. I'm going Liam Cohen as my most valuable person. You guys can join us 888-546-4620. We are live until 1 o'clock talking all things Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Also, big game on Monday night. It is the national championship, Casey. I'm amped up about it. I know you are too. We talked about the matchup. 7:30.
I love that.
Monday
Thank you
night.
for not making it at 9.
Oh, yeah. No, that's something we can't take for granted, man. So many games just start way too late. We don't have to deal with that with the national championship between Notre Dame and Ohio State on Monday. Which matchup in years past does this matchup on Monday night most remind us of? We'll weigh in on that here after this quick commercial break. It is Chris and Casey on WDAE.
Tampa Bay.
Here on WDAE, we keep it live and local until 3 o'clock. So don't miss out. Make sure to stream WDAE. Also, big thank you to Derek DeBose on the other side of the glass for running a double show today. Really appreciate his efforts. We want to talk some college football with all of you guys as well. And speak of it, we've got Gio. He is holding on the phone lines, wants to talk about the college football playoff, the national championship game here on Monday, which we're excited of. And Casey, you had a great idea of which matchup in years past does this game on Monday night between Notre Dame and Ohio State most remind us of. And I really liked your pick. I think it's going to be tough to top the pick that you had regarding which game that might be. I want to hear what you're thinking there as far as which game this does remind you of. You've got a number 7 seed, number 8, I should say, in the college football playoff realm of things, and how we can approach this game on Monday night. Ohio State, a heavy favorite against Notre Dame. But, you know, there's a couple of big matchups in the past. I don't know. What would you say? We're trying to go back maybe a decade or so?
Yeah, I mean, I personally am going with the college football playoff format in itself, whether it be this 12-team format in its first year or any of the 4-team formats we've seen in the past decade. And I got to go all the way back to the very first college football playoff, the inaugural playoff. And it's hard to believe that was over 10 years ago. And it was in 2014. The number 4 seed Ohio State. I remember they snuck their way into that playoff, just like they snuck their way into this 12-team playoff. Now, the thing about Ohio State getting in this year's 12-team playoff was they just lost to Michigan. And say what you will, they've lost to Michigan the past 4 years, and that's been a huge loss. People question Ryan Day, but it's almost catapulted Ohio State to where they wanted to be, and that's why I compare this game to that very first college football playoff. You look at both of these teams. Both teams had early losses in that season that they bounced back from. Ohio State had an early loss in that season, and Oregon had an early loss in that season against Arizona that they bounced back from. Oregon was the number 2 seed. Ohio State was the number 4. So two teams there that weren't necessarily the favorites. Oregon being number 2, maybe you would have thought they would be up against the number 1 team, but Oregon scratches their way in there with Marcus Mariota, Cardell Jones at quarterback for Ohio State. It was a revolving door at quarterback that year for Ohio State, and they just kept finding a way to win those games. Ohio State was questioned whether they truly belonged or not. This season, after losing to Michigan, that season they truly were questioned if they belonged or not, and they had to defeat the number 1 team to get there, and Ohio State did that in defeating Oregon this year to get to the championship once again. So 2 Ohio State games that are kind of mirror images to me are the 2014 game, the first ever college football playoff, and this one.
Yeah, I mean, you make some fair points as far as what we might see on Monday night. And I look at these two teams, really good defenses too across the board, which is exciting. We hear the old slogan, and some disagree now. Some think that offense wins championships. I don't really know how I feel quite about that. I don't know if I'm ready to change my opinion on that. I do believe that the offense gets you there today, but when it comes down to the final outcome of the game, I think it really does depend on one team defensively making a key stop, forcing a turnover, scoring some kind of number of points. These two teams have really good defenses. You look at the all-time matchup between Ohio State and Notre Dame. Ohio State leads the series at 6-2 overall. So if you're one of those guys or girls that looks at the history of the programs, you might lean toward Ohio State, and you might also see that spread being as high as it is. For me personally, just looking at the spread of things, I'm going to compare it and try to keep it technical between TCU and Georgia. What was that? Back 2022.
2022?
Yep. And TCU was a 13.5-point underdog. The spread on Monday night between Ohio State and Notre Dame is not quite there, but it is pretty high. And we saw the outcome of that game between TCU and Georgia. I think it was like 65-7. Georgia won.
I try not to remember that game. That was so boring.
It was.
I was really, really hinging on TCU in that one. I believe I put some cheddar on TCU to win that game, and ultimately that didn't work out. But yeah, I think that was when everybody started to accept we definitely need to expand this, because the 4-team playoff, we're simply just throwing in a Cinderella like Cincinnati that one year, TCU, and hoping that they can upset one of the big boys, and ultimately it just didn't happen with Cincinnati or TCU.
Yeah, it was an ugly game. I remember sitting there on the couch thinking, man, when do I cut this off? But I just couldn't, because it was the national championship game. I can't stray away from that and think, I'm going to turn it off. You only get one national championship game a year, just like the Super Bowl, even if it's a blowout. I'm still watching. I got to keep up with it. So these two teams with their head coaches and Marcus Freeman and Ryan Day have played 2 times. Buckeyes, Fighting Irish, and Ohio State has won both matchups. So if you want to weigh that into the equation for whatever that's worth, you can definitely do so. I know I will. We'll make our picks later on here in this program, so don't miss out on that. But that's a look at what our opinions are in comparison of Monday night's national championship game to what we have seen in years past. We've got a guy on the phone line at 888-546-4620 who's been dying to talk college football with us. Chris and Casey, live until 1. And so much so he's called into the drive this week when we talking college football.
All the above.
He is ready to rock, and that is our guy Gio out in Brandon. Good morning, Gio. Thanks for chiming in here this morning on Chris and Casey.
Gio, what's up?
Hey, what's up, brothers? Listen, so I got some criticisms of the current system for the playoff, and I have some solutions. A couple of criticisms is Oregon deserves the number 1 seed, and their first game is against Ohio State. That was crazy. Secondly, you got teams like Ole Miss, Bama, SEC schools who clamored to get in. And also, you had in the second round of the tournament, you had teams that hadn't played in 25 days playing against teams that played 10 days ago, so they were a little rusty. Here's my solution real quick. I expanded to 16 teams. Nobody gets a bye. Also, those SEC schools, every year, SEC is going to get 4 teams. The Big Ten is going to get 4 teams. The 1 and the 2 seed in the SEC and the Big Ten get in the playoff. They don't have to play. And then you have 3 play 6, 4 play 5 in Atlanta. Same thing in Indianapolis. So, in other words, we're deciding who plays in the playoff on the field instead of a committee. Then when you get down to your 16 teams, we're going to have a committee seed them 1 through 16. None of this Boise and Arizona State getting a 3 and 4 seed, stuff like that. But my point is, we got to tweak this a little bit. Also, just an example, and you guys are going to think I'm crazy. Because the Big Ten had a Big Ten championship, and Ohio State is 10-10 at halftime. A lot of Buckeyes fans are saying, did Ryan Day pull back the reins a little bit and lose to Michigan on purpose so he didn't have to play Oregon? Got more rest for his players, didn't show Oregon the game plan, and therefore they didn't know what they were going to run. And the Big Ten game no one cared about. You can get in for the game for $12. Did Ryan Day lose on purpose so he didn't show Oregon the game plan? And what happens? They're up 34-0, and then Oregon crosses the 50-yard line. By the way, Notre Dame fans, shut your mouth, okay? Stop talking to me on Twitter and being disrespectful. And also, you haven't beaten us in football in 86 years. 86 years ago, there were only 48 states. So show me what you got on Monday. I'm sick of you hearing about you guys on Twitter. Thanks for my call, guys. Have a great day.
Yeah, thanks, Gio.
Yeah, appreciate the call, Gio. And I see what you're saying with the 16-team playoff. And I think something that doesn't need to go we don't need to skip over here is what I've been hearing a lot of people say is, where do the conference championship games fall into this maybe expanded playoff or reseeding or, changing the 12-team format that we just had for the first year this year? And I think personally we need to end the conference championship games. I don't think there's any point, and we saw this year that it just made it more confusing throwing in a 10-3 team like Clemson, who ended up winning the ACC, and then they go out there and they don't look great in the opening round. You got teams like Boise State that sneak into a first-round bye because of the conference championship game. You got Arizona State, who did give Texas a very great game. That was an awesome game. I'll give Arizona State their props. But what is the conference championship game truly doing for the 12-team playoff and maybe even 16-team playoff? In my opinion, if you go to 16, there's no way you can have the conference championship games. That's too many games. But with the 12-team playoff right now, if you're going to do the reseeding thing, just 1 through 12, kind of like the 1 through 16 idea that Gio just talked about, I think you got to get rid of the conference championships because it just throws a huge wrench in the middle of something that you've already figured out ultimately throughout the season when you're playing all your conference teams.
Yeah, and I think both you guys made a good point. I feel as if the seeding is the biggest issue here. It's not even about necessarily adding teams or taking away teams for me. It's more so of how do we get the proper seeding to where it is matched up with teams that should be playing each other, teams that actually are in the same playing field of each other, and making it more competitive. We saw the first couple of games. I mean, they were blowouts, man. We're talking 10-plus point differentials between the winner and loser. In every game, it felt as if it was old. It felt like there was just no true compete there. It felt like it was uneven. If you can find a way to reseed the teams, even 1 through 12, more appropriately once the playoff starts, I would be much more inclined and enthused to see how that would shake up before just adding 4 more teams. And then, as you said, maybe having to get rid of the conference championship games and what that might weigh into the equation as well. So if they could figure out a way to get the seeding squared away and have it more competitive, have the games and teams play more evenly, I'm all game for that. But as far as adding 4 more teams, I'm not there yet, simply because
me either.
It's so fresh. It's still so fresh. There can be more tweaks to be made to this. Once you jump to 16, you're not going back.
No.
Like, they're never, even though I would like 8 teams, they're not going to go down to 8 teams. It's only up from here. You only expand. You're not going to narrow down and try to take away from what you've already built.
It just shows you how crazy college football fans are. I mean, Nick Wise alluded to this in the Nick Wise show before we came on. He was talking about, why is it that we have this need or this urge to always want something different immediately after we have something new? We just got the 12-team playoff this year, and as soon as it comes out, the format, how they're doing it, and as soon as we get the first 12-team bracket this year, I don't like it. We need to change it. This isn't good enough. Let it breathe a little bit. Give it a couple seasons, Let's see how it goes next season and then the season after that. And if we see more of these first-round blowouts and some of these teams that maybe aren't deserving of first-round buys, getting them in the next couple seasons, then maybe we pivot a little bit. But let it breathe a little bit, baby. You got to let it see what's going to happen. Let's see what's going to happen the next 2 years with the 12-team playoff and give it a couple more years. That's what I think.
It's still too fresh. It's still too early to try to have a solution now. I'd rather be working on a game plan as we speak for a couple of years down the road rather than just acting on it right now. It's still too early for me. I'm with you on that, Casey. We continue with the College Football National Championship game all morning long. It's 11:43 here on this Saturday morning. We're live until 1 o'clock. It is Chris and Casey on WDAE. So we do have a little college football discussion regarding a quarterback and maybe if he made the right or so-called wrong decision about his future. We'll continue to chatter on that and take your calls on the national championship game at 888-546-4620. Text us on the Bartow Ford DAE text line at 82945. Simply start your text with DAE.
Tampa Bay Sports Radio, 95.3 WDAE and AM 620.
This report is sponsored by Rapid Radios.
Your Max Defender 8 forecast is cloudy, breezy, but mild. Afternoon temperatures soaring into the low 70s for the first time in several days. Your chances for rain for the most part today remain low. We see an evening isolated chance for a shower, but we're expecting widespread downpours to sweep through the area during the day on Sunday. And so it'll make for a midday round of rain, drier before and after that, and much cooler temperatures right behind all of the rain. And that settles in for most of next week's forecast. I'm Max Defender 8 meteorologist Rebecca Berry.
Rapid Radios are instant push-to-talk walkie-talkies offering national LTE coverage and no subscription ever. A great alternative to a mobile phone for your kids. For a limited time, go to rapidradios.com and you'll get 60% off. Free UPS shipping. Add code radio and get an extra 5% off.
From the Rude Air and Water Studios, powered locally by Ferguson HVAC. Engineered tough, built to last.
This is the story of the one. As a maintenance specialist for university housing, he knows college students can major in wear and tear. Plus, housing so many students doesn't leave a lot of room to house all the supplies he needs. That's where Grainger comes in. With over 1 million industrial-grade products and fast, dependable delivery, Grainger carries the quality products he needs so he doesn't have to. From a new door hinge to a whole new faucet. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
If you want your windows there in weeks, pick up the phone and just search Reese.
Here's a New Year's resolution for your home. Get factory direct custom-made impact windows installed before hurricane season starts. For over 50 years, Reese has been one of the leading window and door companies in the state of Florida. At Reese, most impact windows are installed in 6 to 8 weeks and come with a double lifetime warranty.
Program were pre-recorded. Live across Tampa Bay, Chris and Casey on 95.3 WDAE and AM 620.
And we are back, Tampa Bay, after a quick commercial break on DAE. It is Chris and Casey. We are live until 1 o'clock this afternoon. Obviously, we know about the College Football National Championship game. We talked about that, gave our thoughts on the seeding in the College Football Playoff. But now we want to talk about what happened regarding a college football quarterback. I would argue a star quarterback. Would you, Casey?
Yeah, absolutely a star quarterback. And currently he's top 5 on most NFL draft big boards to be one of the first quarterbacks off of the board in this upcoming NFL draft.
And I think rightfully so. We're talking about Quinn Ewers of the Texas Longhorns, who we all have talked about the NIL and how that's impacted college football. It is totally a different game with today's college football because of those NIL deals and the college football transfer portal. So many different variances that weigh into why the game has totally changed. Now you're going to see college football players, if they don't like anything that's going on or if they're not happy with their coach, they're just going to enter the transfer portal, or they're simply going to go wherever the most money is and try to take that route, which we all know that college programs have paid college athletes over the years under the table, but now it's official. There are contracts in works. It's crazy to see this. I don't have a problem with it, but it definitely is impacting the game for better or for worse. So allegedly, Quinn Ewers turned down an $8 million NIL deal to transfer out of Texas and go play elsewhere. We all know Arch Manning there, the next guy.
Yep.
It felt like Quinn Ewers was out of the picture anyway in Texas.
I'd say so.
I feel as if, I don't want to say he made the wrong decision, but he made a decision that I was a little shocked by compared to the average college athlete in today's society, and that is he's declared for the NFL draft. He's not going to transfer. He's not going to go take that $8 million offer for 1 year and play. He's simply going to declare for the draft, and he's not going to make that money year one because I don't think he's going to be a top 5 pick of this year's NFL draft. He might be a top 3 or 5 quarterback.
Yeah.
As far as being a top 3 to 5 pick in the draft, there's no way he's going that high.
No, I don't believe so. And for a quarterback who didn't necessarily do anything to boost his stock and what we saw in the college football playoff, we saw Quinn Ewers in that Ohio State game have the opportunity late in the game when Texas is in the red zone to make a play, and ultimately he turns the ball over and Jack Sawyer takes it to the end zone and Ohio State takes a big lead and they sealed that game up. That didn't do anything to make me believe that Quinn Ewers is maybe even a first-round draft pick. He's currently 4th, maybe 5th on most big boards, whether you have him behind Jackson Dart or not. But the 3 quarterbacks that are ahead of him on almost all the boards are head and shoulders to me above where Quinn Ewers is. And for a kid that was probably going to be taken out of the starting position any way you slice it next season because of Arch Manning and his heritage and everything we know about him and what he was able to do this season and the snaps that he played for Texas. Without a doubt, Arch Manning is going to get the starting job either way at Texas, whether Quinn Ewers stays or whatever next year. It's a head scratcher to me because, first of all, I would have loved to have known. We don't know what team offered him $8 million, and you got to think it would be one of the powerhouses.
If they're
going to
pay that much.
Yeah, I would think it would be somebody like an Alabama or a Georgia or an SEC high-level team like that, LSU, something like that. And to me, for such a question mark in the draft like Quinn Ewers, you don't know where you're going to go. You don't know how far you're going to fall. It's a no-brainer you take that $8 million NIL deal, man. That would be one of the highest NIL deals, if not the highest, we've ever seen this far. You look at Carson Beck, a guy that as soon as he decided he was done with college football, he's putting his name into the NFL draft. He would have been lucky to me if he got drafted in the first 3 rounds. He's like a Stetson Bennett, in my opinion, man. He's going 3rd, 4th round at the earliest, and he gets $3 to $4 million collectively that he's going to get at Miami to play there now. And I think that was an awesome decision for Carson Beck. I think he's going to get even more exposure this year. He's going to be in a different culture with a different offensive scheme at Miami that's arguably going to favor him more than it did at Georgia. He gets another season to show off what he has for the NFL. He can boost his draft stock.
Right.
And while I don't think Carson Beck and Quinn Ewers are quite on the same talent level, I think Quinn Ewers is immensely more talented than Carson Beck. You double the NIL money that Carson Beck is getting at Miami, and $3 to $4 million to $8 million, and you're probably going to even more of a powerhouse and even more of a contender where you can put your name out there in another 12-team playoff and make a run at a college football playoff title again next year. I don't know what Quinn Ewers is doing, man. I understand he sees the money in the NFL, and it's big time, and he feels he is at that level. But I don't understand turning down $8 million to have some more fun in college, man. College is a good time.
Well, I'll say this, too, is, you look at the quarterback vacancies or the teams that don't necessarily have their franchise quarterback in the National Football League, and the ones that need a quarterback are not very good teams. You're not going to go to a team, even if you're drafted later. Like, let's just say he is the third or fourth quarterback taken in this year's NFL draft. You're not going to a team that can put you in the best position to win now. You're just not. Let's be real about it. I understand from the perspective of if you were worried about potentially getting hurt long term, maybe getting a career-ending injury at the college level if he were to come back next year. Aside from that, I don't see any true benefit to going to the NFL for him, especially when you have guys like Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders going out. They've already declared for the draft. Those guys are higher draft prospects. Jalen Milroe, I think, is a little lower than Quinn Ewers, but you're right. I mean, there are a couple of quarterbacks, whereas if you wait another year, I don't think there are quite the number of guys that are going to be ready to go in the NFL and take over a quarterbacking position. So ultimately, I'm shocked. I think, as you alluded to, he could have only built his draft stock for the year after if he came back. And if he went to go on another playoff run, let's say he makes it to the national championship game, win, lose, or draw, he is simply going to get more money, more exposure. You couldn't have said it any better there. I'm taken back by the fact that he's trying to just declare for the draft. He's not ready. We saw him make a couple of bad decisions down the stretch this year and some interceptions where you're like, where the hell was he throwing that ball? And he needs to get better. I mean, Carson Beck, not nearly the quarterback that Ewers is, but still he realized, hey, there's money to be made. I'm not going to be one of the top 3 or 4 quarterbacks taken this year. Let me go make money elsewhere. And also, I think he followed his girlfriend, right, to Miami?
Yeah.
I think it was.
Yeah.
That played a big part into it as well, but totally shocked. And not saying he made the wrong decision, but in today's times, it feels like something that we would have seen years ago, not in today's society with these guys making money in the NIL.
And I think that's where the 12-team playoff expanding from 4 to 12 teams has done an exceptional job of making it where players want to play longer in the postseason. If you have the 4-team playoff in other bowls, and let's say you're a team on the fringe, like a 5-6 seed that didn't get in the 4-team playoff, you don't want to play in a meaningless New Year's 6 bowl or some other Pop-Tarts bowl if you can get that exposure in the playoff. So expanding that 12-team playoff has made guys like Quinn Ewers, Carson Beck stick around and play more games, and that can only boost your draft stock more. So if you're getting NIL money from a school that is looking like a favorite to be in the 12-team playoff again, Quinn Ewers, that's a head-scratcher for me. And personally, I don't know if he's a guy that teams are going to want to trade up for in the draft. That's what I would ask myself. Am I somebody that's already been looked at, that's been heavily scouted by teams in the NFL? I don't think he has. I don't think there's any NFL team out there dying to draft Quinn Ewers in the first round. I don't think he goes in the first round ultimately. I think he goes in the second, third. I think the fourth is pushing it. Maybe second or third round pick is what I would put on Quinn Ewers. But if there's nobody that's chomping at the bit for you and wanting to trade up for you, you got to take that $8 million NIL deal, man. You got to.
It's Chris and Casey here live until 1 o'clock this afternoon on WDAE. We're talking all things Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the College Football National Championship game on Monday night, and the college football playoff format, the whole 9 yards. We've got you covered. We will be right back here on WDAE after this short commercial break. Don't go anywhere, because coming up at the top of the hour, 12 o'clock, it already is hitting noon, we will address the biggest need for the Buccaneers this offseason in order for them to take that next step next season, win a playoff game, maybe 2. We'll have our answers next on Chris and Casey.
Tampa Bay Sports Radio, 95.3 WDAE and AM 620.
Downy Rinse and Refresh. Break up with stinky clothes.
Rinse it out. Every now and then I get a little bit tired of the stinks that just will never come out. Pouring out in the rinse change. Every
It's a lot of things. We got to make plays. We got to go for the ball. Obviously, there's a different guy back there starting every week. It can be a myriad of things, but the bottom line is we got to get turnovers.
Yeah, Todd Bowles on the Buccaneers defense this year, and the fact that they did not force as many turnovers as they obviously wanted, but more importantly, as they needed in order to not only make a deep playoff run, but win some games and potentially contend for a Lombardi trophy. The defense just wasn't consistent enough this year. Had a good stretch near the earlier portion of the season, Casey, but after that, the defense dwindled. We saw a lot of guys go down, and consistencies botched first halves of games and then great adjustments to start off the second half of football games. But you can't do that and win consistently in the NFL. Chris Mathis, Casey Warner live until 1 o'clock. It's already noon. Day is flying by talking Buccaneer football, college playoffs, and the national championship game on Monday night with you guys. But now we need to talk about the offseason. The Bucs season officially over with, Casey. I'm upset by it. We all know that with the season being over, you only have a couple of more weeks of football, and then it's adios. No more football to be talked about as far as gameplay is concerned, and I'm upset by it because I truly feel as if the Bucs should still be playing this weekend at the very least.
Yeah, they. You look at a team like the Commanders getting a shot at the Lions, and a Bucs team that defeated the Lions early in the season, and it makes you think, if the Bucs had that shot again, could they beat them again? And ultimately, the way that offense is playing, I think they could have. So a team that very, very well could have been in the divisional round, but we still got a lot of good matchups this weekend. Just under a month of football left. Cherish it while you can.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, a lot of good games to pay attention to this weekend, but a lot of stuff to be had to talk about the Bucs offseason, and it's a big offseason. It could be one of the biggest in the last decade.
It very well could be. Very pivotal for the not only progression of this team moving forward, but also the job security of Todd Bowles, a head coach. And what will they do with Liam Cohen? Will he walk? Will he take a head coaching job? It all comes down to where this team puts themselves in position to achieve next year with Todd Bowles. And there are plenty of holes to fill on this Buccaneers roster. Coming into the year, Casey, I don't know how you felt about it, but I thought the top three positions of need were pass rusher, cornerback, and believe it or not, I thought tight end was a need that they needed to address. I was proven wrong with the tight end position. Cade Otton showed that when he's healthy, he's a pretty good tight end.
Solid.
More importantly, they have depth there, too. We saw it in Devin Culp. I'm going to blank on Payne Durham.
Yeah.
Yep, another guy. So I'm not worried about the tight end position. However, as the year went on, I realized the pass rusher job there by the defensive line, the outside linebackers, wasn't up to par. It wasn't great enough this year. Production there was lack thereof was frustrating because they have young pieces that this team drafted to be the next guy, and nobody has really ran away with it yet. Yes, we know Yaya Diaby is phenomenal. Kalijah Kancey off the edge is really good, but they haven't proven to be that dude just yet. There's still a lot of green there, Casey. So aside from that, the cornerback position, yes, Zion McCollum stepped up. However, I was hoping he would step up and be cornerback number 2 behind Jamel Dean. Instead, we did not see enough from Jamel Dean, and now we had Zion McCollum step up and be a 1, which is a tall task for Zion McCollum. He rang the bell several times this year with that request from Todd Bowles in the defense. But ultimately, the defense's lack of ability to cover as the season went on and across the middle at linebacker, those two positions for me, cornerback and linebacker, are the two weak links, in my opinion, simply because I can sit here and wait on those younger pass rushers to develop. I'm willing to give them those guys another year, maybe 2, to try to prove themselves. Not JTS, but Chris Braswell, a guy in Kalijah Kancey, a guy in Yaya Diaby to take the next step.
Yeah, and let's back up to the cornerback position here. Former cornerback, former NCAA Division III cornerback talking here. I know that's real high on the list, but you got to get it right here in Tampa. You have to have that lockdown number 1 shutdown corner. And any way you slice it, Jamel Dean is not that guy. Jamel Dean has never played 16 or 17 games since they went to 17 games. He's never played a full season, not one time. He played 12 games this season. He played 13 games last season. This season, the Bucs were 31st in passing defense. They were 28th last season. And we saw it, and I predicted it last week. I said Terry McLaurin's going to have some big catches. He's going to have a touchdown, and he sure enough did. Terry McLaurin had a big game, and ultimately it was one of the things that got the Commanders in scoring position. It got them where they needed to be to hit that field goal, the doink to win the game, and Jamel Dean he did everything but show that he is the number one guy, the lockdown guy, the guy you're going to put on your number one receiver every single game, clouding that receiver. There's no way I can trust Jamel Dean going into next season. Zion McCollum is a great complimentary corner. Love what I saw from him this year. Coming out of Sam Houston State, I don't think anybody thought Zion McCollum would be as good and as a contributor as he was this season. He's a great complimentary corner, but you got to have that one guy like a Jalen Ramsey in past years, like going back even further, a Champ Bailey, a guy that you can key on in and out of every game to lock down a number one receiver, and the Bucs just don't have that right now, any way you slice it.
And you're exactly right. And also with the receivers getting better as years go on, you look at NFL teams now, it's not one great receiver here and there. It's every team has, it feels almost as if every team has two really good receivers, one great one. You look at the Bucs, they have a prime example of that. Arguably when healthy, they have two great receivers in Chris Godwin and Mike Evans. So the cornerback position is that much more crucial to have on a defense, especially if you're trying to compete, slow down other offenses. We all know this game is becoming an aerial attack. You're seeing a lot more teams just drop back and fling it down the field because they can. And the way the game is officiated today, Casey, it's beneficial to the offense and detrimental to the defense. So you have to get a corner that can step in, whether it's play primarily zone, man-to-man, whatever it is. You got to have a guy that you can feel confident in to say, this guy will do his job each and every Sunday. Of course, a great receiver will get his own every once in a while. That's okay. That's going to happen. But to see what we saw last week with Jamel Dean and what Terry McLaurin was able to do against him one-on-one, which was frustrating to me because Jamel Dean has the size. He has the speed. I know you played cornerback in high school and even collegiately as well. Yeah. I just don't know what it is aside from health, but Jamel just doesn't seem to be that dude. And it's frustrating because I thought he would be. He is a freak athlete, but it doesn't translate to being a good corner.
And it's kind of odd how the edge position and the cornerback position, I think even more so the cornerback position, they kind of mirror each other on the Bucs. You got some good rotational guys. I mean, a Yaya Diaby, he's a great rotational guy this season. Chris Braswell still learning the position. Joe Tryon-Shanka, he's never going to be that number one pass rusher, but he's a guy that you can rotate in there. Anthony Nelson, who made some big plays. And I feel that way about Jamel Dean and Christian Izien and Zion McCollum. They're all great complementary guys, rotational guys you can put in there when you have injuries at the 2 or 3 spot. But there's got to be that number one guy. There's got to be that pillar on the defense who's going to completely take one side of the field away. And the Bucs haven't had that in quite some time. And, I mean, you go back to I would say even the most recent, maybe Darrelle Revis. He was at the end of his career when he was with the Bucs. Richard Sherman, they were at the end of their career. But the Bucs, it's just been so long since they've had that corner that locks down an entire half of the field. And you look what the Lions, who've been so successful this season, they've had so many injuries. They went out and got Terrion Arnold in this past draft, and it has paid off dividends for them. He was injured a couple weeks ago. He's been on and off the field late in the season. But Terrion Arnold has been locked down for them this season. The Lions' defense has been impressive despite all their injuries. And look where they're at right now. They're making another Super Bowl push. Go out and get that guy in the first or even second round that's going to be your CB of the future. Lock down that half of the field. And I think that does a lot. That pays dividends for this Buccaneers defense.
And I think there's a case to be made for those that say, hey, we need to get a pass rusher. We got those texts here. Must get a savage edge, then an inside linebacker, then a corner to kind of beefing up the middle of the field there. That comes from Dolan out of the 813. Another one out of the 941. Another texter says, can we put Tyke at corner with Zion? We all know that
I like the
Tyke
idea.
Smith is already he's kind of a utility guy. He's a Swiss Army knife. I like having him being able to float around from position to position.
More of a slot, I think.
Yeah, for sure. He's a little small to be put out on the outside, and no discredit to him and his talents, just comes down to his stature, and you really can't have that in today's league. You have receivers 6'2", 6'3", that run like a corner that's 5'10", 5'11", just hauling down the field. Last year, I really was more, we need an edge rusher, which will help the the cornerbacks in the secondary. That's true to this day. However, we already have pass rushers that are just waiting to get better with this Buccaneers team. As I said earlier, I'm willing to wait on that another season for a guy like Chris Braswell to maybe take the next step. I want to see more from a guy like Yaya Diaby. Maybe Kalijah Kancey will also continue to progress as the year goes on. I know he's kicking and screaming over letting Jaden Daniels get past him on that third down and one, I believe it was, Sunday night, which was very frustrating to see. And that was the play that set up the loss, truly. I want to see a cornerback early. You could address cornerback in free agency, but they're going to cost an arm and a leg for a guy who's proven himself.
Yeah, and we talked about earlier, right now over the cap projects that the Bucs, without restructures or without any big moves, they have about $11 million to spend this offseason. And I would think you could get maybe one startable corner for around that per year. So that
maybe.
I think that maybe. So that I think that's kind of off the table. And I got it solidified. The more we've talked about this throughout the show and the more we go in this segment about the Bucs needs, there's no way this year in the draft that you can't go 1, 2, 3, edge, corner, middle linebacker, corner, edge, whichever the best available is. Those first 2 to 3 picks have to be an edge, a corner, or a middle linebacker because it was just too easy to see, and it was too easy to game plan for teams where you're going to go, who you're going to match up against, and how can we take advantage of that matchup with a very weak Bucs defense. And that's not what this franchise is about. We know they pride themselves on defense. Got to get back to that lockdown, hard-nosed Bucs defense we've seen win them Super Bowls in the past.
And if you have that corner that's able to do a little bit of it all and hold his own on his side of the field, you see a guy like Antoine Winfield Jr. look a lot better. And also be able to free roam there in the backfield and try in the secondary and try to make plays on the ball rather than making tackles downfield because corners are getting beat, or having to step up in the box. You got a guy who can actually roam around on the defensive side of the ball, which is what Todd Bowles absolutely loves to do and is very great at if he can do that. The Bucs just didn't have the health this year. Didn't have the players available at all the right times. You had Zion McCollum healthy or Jamel Dean healthy or, hey, you had Tyke Smith out and Antoine Winfield out. You never had a combination of your key core players on defense healthy at one time. I want to see that here next year, and I think it can happen. Chris Mathis, Casey Warner live until 1 o'clock. We are going to continue to talk about this, the Buccaneers offseason needs. What do they need to address this offseason, whether it be free agency or in the draft, in order for this team to take that next leap, win a playoff game, maybe two, more importantly, contend for a Super Bowl? Jake in Vermont, we see you. Pat in Clearwater, we'll get to you on the other side.
All right.
Oh, yeah, it is Jake Sports Take. We will get to him here after this quick commercial break. It is Chris and Casey.
Tampa Bay Sports Radio, 95.3 WDAE and AM 6. DAE and AM 620.
We've had a conversation. Me and Lamb were very close. We have these type of conversations, what to expect from an interview and everything else. At least you know you're picking the right guy, and we'll see what happens going forward from there. But, you know, if they're not talking about you guys for interviews, then you're probably not doing it right.
That's Todd Bowles, the voice of the head coach of your Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Obviously a guy who a lot of Buccaneer fans despise, don't think he's the answer at head coach. Some think he's okay, he's good. I don't really think anybody sits here and thinks that he's great, although I think he deserves to still have his job. I don't think he's a great head coach. I don't think he's a great Buccaneer head coach either. I think he's a really good defensive mind that gets the most out of the roster, that has dealt with a lot of injuries this year. Unfortunately, the season is over with. We're looking ahead to next year. We're asking about who the Bucs should address as far as position of need here next season. I believe cornerback. Casey also taking cornerback, but there's arguments here for pass rusher, linebacker, maybe another safety could be in play as well. We'll go to Pat in Clearwater, who has his Buccaneer wish list. Good morning. Good afternoon, Pat.
Yeah, good afternoon, Pat. What's up?
Good show, guys. I want to see them put more pressure on the NFL by getting a fast, tall wide receiver, because I don't know what's going to happen next year with Chris. Don't know how Mike's going to be doing, so it there's a lot of questions right there for me. I want to see somebody they can plug in and can play.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I'd like to see what they do at the receiver position. I just don't know if it's a position I want to see early. Are you saying attack it early in the draft or anything like that?
Yep, yeah. Yeah, or else get somebody like T. Higgins, somebody that can put pressure on a defense, and really they'll have to split coverage between Mike Evans and the guy they bring in, because you got to have a guy that's a 1 or a 2, close to a 1.
So, Pat, what is your thoughts on Chris Godwin this coming offseason? Is that somebody you want to lock in, or is that somebody you think money should be spent elsewhere? Where do you think Chris Godwin needs to end up?
Yeah, I think Chris is going to probably come to realize, that he's not what he used to be. He's going to have to take a pay cut. For him to be on the team. I mean, it's just, you can't be worried about is he going to be, the same Chris Godwin we've seen in the last year and a half, 2 years. I just think you got to kind of have a talk with him and say, look, we got to get somebody that's going to help Baker out, in the long term. So I don't know.
Yeah, no, fair points, Pat. We appreciate your call. It is Chris and Casey. That's back-to-back weeks. He's chimed in on the program.
Yep. Let's go.
He had the thoughts on the Buccaneers today and last week, too. And I just don't know if addressing the receiver position, not only early, but in the draft, I should say in free agency at all. Nothing in free agency. Do not want to pay, but maybe taking like a third, maybe a fourth.
Yeah,
I don't even know.
A really athletic guy,
maybe.
But I don't. The way Mike still played this year, even after coming off the injury, there is a big question mark with Chris Godwin, especially with another major injury and not a lot of cap room, and you got to get a deal done with him in this offseason. So I do agree it's not something that should be overlooked, but early, comparatively speaking, with how good your offense was and how much your defense struggled and the needs we just discussed, I don't think there's any way you can put all your chips on the table for a receiver. There's just no way.
I couldn't feel comfortable in doing so, especially when you think of the defense and that being Todd Bowles' specialty, but he couldn't do that this year because he didn't have really anybody to work with as far as the cornerback position goes, aside from Zion McCollum. We'll go to Jake, who's listening on the free iHeartRadio app. It is Chris and Casey. Jake up in Vermont. What's up, Jake?
Hey, Jake.
Hey, Chris and Casey. How are you guys? You're doing an outstanding job with the show, and I appreciate you guys.
Thank you, Jake. We appreciate you, man.
Thanks, buddy.
I was wondering, I wanted to talk about the Bucs off-season plans and my predictions on what they should do this off-season. And I think the defense is the most important thing this off-season for the Buccaneers. I really think they need a legit number one corner, because I just don't think Jamel Dean we can rely upon because of his injury history.
Right.
He's just spotty in and out. I really like him as a whole, but I think they're going to have to trade him this offseason and get a standout corner. And I think also they need an edge pass rusher, like a Khalil Mack, maybe even a Max Crosby. It might be a stretch, but to swing big at pass rusher could be huge to go along Vita Vea and Kalijah Cansey.
Yeah, that's a great point, Jake, and thank you for the call. I think that may be the option that they end up going with. I heard Nick Wise talking on the Nick Wise show earlier about Khalil Mack and him potentially being a free agent this offseason. He's going to want a pretty big contract, pushing $20 million, and that's something we don't know if the Bucs are even going to have this offseason in cap room. But having a guy like that in the building for your young edge rushers like Yaya Diaby and Chris Braswell, that doesn't go unnoticed. So if you can get a guy like that in, and I think that's something they maybe tried to grasp for a little too late with Shaq Barrett coming in for the playoff run, and he didn't have much of an impact at all in those last couple weeks he was with the team. If you can get somebody that's still got enough gas in the tank like a Khalil Mack, then that does a lot for that defensive side of the ball and a lot for that locker room. So, I mean, he's basically what we were just talking about, corner, edge. I don't think you can talk to any Bucs fan without saying they saw blatantly that was the biggest issue on defense.
There are a lot of defensive issues and woes, and I got to pinpoint primarily to the defensive injuries too. I think if the defense were healthy for the majority of the season, I would feel a little bit differently, and I think the Bucs would still be playing this week. I really do. However, cornerback, the biggest position of need, no doubt. And again, I've alluded to it a couple of times now. It comes down to those young pass rushers they already do have. We haven't seen a lot from Casey, but I'm willing to give them some more time because they didn't get as much playing time this year as they hoped. We didn't see much of Chris Braswell. Also didn't see a lot from linebacker Servassier Dennis. I know he's a linebacker, but he did blitz a quarterback or time or two. Just had to deal with an injury, man. And when you have a guy like Levante David who's getting older and not as great in pass coverage across the middle, you have to put him in better spots. Yes, he's still a headsy player, but you have to put him in better spots in order to avoid a big critical mistake. And we saw the tight ends eat up on the Bucs defense this year, Casey. Even Kyle Pitts went out there and had a couple of big games on the Bucs defense, and that was really it. Aside from those games, he didn't do anything this year.
Yeah, I think KJ Britt is an absolute liability at middle linebacker. He's a tough, hard-nosed player. He brings it, but sometimes you just don't have it, and you're not a scheme fit, and I just don't think he's a scheme fit here in Tampa Bay. So can't put KJ Britt out there next season.
And I love the call there from Jake as well. I wish they could afford like a Max Crosby, Khalil Mack. I just don't see it happening.
That's a pipe dream.
Yeah, I wish we could. Here's a text out of the 727. Let Godwin walk if they can get Max Crosby.
I would agree with that. Yeah,
you would.
But
I think I would too.
I mean, that just changed. That kind of changes the whole course of the offseason. I mean, and I think that's maybe what Pat was talking about in Clearwater. You could afford a guy like Max Crosby and focus offensively again in the draft. If you let Chris Godwin go and you get a guy like Max Crosby in there, then that makes you pivot to maybe a second or third round receiver. So it's an interesting take. Ultimately, I'm just going to have to go home and play some Madden and mess with the roster and see what I can do for the Bucs team this offseason.
You know what? Some Buccaneer fans, that's what you see on social media. You see a free agent or a name out there.
Why can't we do this?
Why? It's just not
as simple
realistic.
as that. Yeah.
No, it's not. And you talked about $11 million cap space right now.
Not a lot.
That's low. I mean, talk about trying to get you said a corner maybe earlier for a year. You might be able to swing that. It might even be a stretch at that point, man. So,
yeah.
Young corner, a guy who's proven himself against really top-tier talent in college football is the way that I want to go. Let's see what Hernan in Tampa and what he wants to do here this offseason. Good morning. Good afternoon, Hernan.
What's up, Hernan?
Hey, what's going on, guys?
Hey, what's up, brother?
Chilling, man. I just want to address Chris Godwin first, because Chris Godwin, I think, deserves the opportunity to stay here in Tampa. The guy earlier, there was a call earlier that said that Chris Godwin needs to realize that he's a little slower. He was injured last year, and when he came in this year, he was league in catches and yards when he got injured. So, no, Chris Godwin is not slow. So I would actually lead towards keeping our strength, which is our offense, still trying to keep Chris Godwin if possible. If we can actually trade for a Max Crosby, a guy like Hendrickson, or get Khalil Mack, that would be great. But pass rush is the absolute 100% need that we need here. Because in Tampa, and it's always been this way in Tampa, our pass rush has always driven turnovers. And there's been a lack of pass rush here since the Super Bowl. And even that Super Bowl year, we weren't great in pass rush. We got really hot in the playoffs.
Good point.
So I think honestly, pass rush is the way to go. And and a guy like, for instance, just the Detroit Lions, Aiden Hutchinson got hurt. Okay, they went out and got a pass rush. They got one of the better pass rushers and traded for it because they realized that their defense was getting torched. So their pass rush, they got this pass rusher to come in, and it helped their cornerbacks. They were getting torched before they got him. So I think, honestly, that's the way that we need to go, is pass rush and then linebacker and then cornerback. You do got to shore up the middle of the field. The tight end's 8. They had options. So you got to take options away. Take the middle of the field away, and if they eat outside, it's a longer throw. We can get turnovers.
Thank you for the call, Hernan. That's a great point on Chris Godwin and his contract situation. And ultimately, I think that is one of the biggest things we've seen in the past couple of years with Jason Light and working his cap magic. And I have no doubt he's going to be able to do that again. We got the Baker Mayfield deal done here in Tampa, and that's looking like a great bargain at the point in some of these other deals we've been seeing go around for quarterbacks who had much lesser seasons than Baker Mayfield. You look at keeping a guy like Levante David around, that's still on the checklist this offseason. And I have no doubt in my mind that Jason Light will find a way to keep guys like Chris Godwin and Levante David around. And ultimately, that's what you got to ask yourself if you're a Bucs fan. Do you want that continuity or do you want that turnover? And if you want that continuity, maybe it is better to keep Todd Bowles around. But if you want to flip some things up, if you really want to shake things up, maybe it's time to go a new direction with Liam Cohen and not keep some of these older guys around. And maybe that's Chris Godwin too. Maybe you free up some more cap room, you get some more guys on defense, and that takes pressure off of a young coach like Liam Cohen. So it just depends which route you want to go.
And the reality of it is we're going to find out here in the coming months as far as what the Bucs front office believes in is in regards to Todd Bowles, Liam Cohen. Do they want to let the offensive guru walk? Are they okay with that? If it comes down to it, I think there's a way that we're going to see Liam Cohen back here in Tampa with Todd Bowles as the head coach. And he's made reference to it already. He's only, 39 years old?
That's right.
Not even 40. Why not wait another year? And truth be told, if I'm Liam Cohen and you stay as offensive coordinator, I feel pretty great.
Oh, yeah.
To yourself that Todd Bowles is not going to stay here forever.
And let me make myself clear. In a perfect world, Todd Bowles stays as head coach, Liam Cohen stays as offensive coordinator, Levante David stays, Chris Godwin stays, and you build through the draft and you pick up a couple complimentary pieces in free agency. That is my perfect Bucs offseason. But we all know the NFL is not a perfect league. It stands for not for long. So you got to be on your toes. You got to have the best offseason possible. And that's how you can go from worst to first. And teams like the Panthers are going to be building this offseason. The Saints are going to get a new head coach. The Falcons are going to be building better under second-year head coach Raheem Morris. And they're getting younger by the season. Michael Penix will be back next season. So there are some up-and-coming teams in the NFC. And ultimately, we're going to find out what the Bucs are going to do. Are they going to go a different direction, or are they going to keep building on what they got?
Well, we're going to find out as far as what you guys think the Bucs need to address in the offseason. Is it a corner, pass rusher? Is it a linebacker? We'll continue to talk about that as we see Steve in Lakeland. Steve, we will get to your call after this quick commercial break on the Chris and Casey Show. We're live until 1 o'clock, and we're going to make our picks for this weekend's NFL games, and we'll also pick Monday night's national championship game as well. Steve, we see you.
Tampa Bay Sports Radio, 95.3 WDAE and AM 620.
Hi, I'm Chief Meteorologist Bobby Deskins with 10 Tampa Bay. Download 10 Tampa Bay Plus and get breaking news, weather updates, and newscasts on demand for free on Roku.
with a bet, and he can never turn down a good bet. And the bet was Navy to cover in that Army-Navy matchup in which Pat Donovan and Aaron Jacobson were in Washington, D.C. for the game. And Navy ultimately ended up winning that game and defeating Army. So
now
Wise won the bet.
Now we got Aaron Jacobson on.
Let's
Aaron,
go.
Saturdays from 2 until 3 o'clock. Don't miss out on that. Let's go out to Steve real quick, who's in Lakeland, up in Lakeland. Good afternoon, Steve.
Hey, guys. Great show.
Thank you, sir.
Long-time listener here. Yes, sir. I'm glad to see you guys get your show. I like the new format. Real quick, one thing I haven't heard you guys talk about is the middle of the defense, the back middle of the defense. We've talked about the sexy positions of the cornerback. We talked about the sexy positions of the edge rusher. What about the number 2 safety, the free safety, if you will? Don't we need to get somebody in there? Jordan Whitehead was an experiment. Don't we need to get somebody in there to help Antoine, ball hawk in the back end, come up and guard 15 to 20 yards deep as the crossing patterns that we've seen time and time again kill us on second, third, and especially fourth down conversions?
Yeah, I appreciate the call, brother. And I think that is absolutely something that might have gone overlooked this year. Everybody expected way more out of Jordan Whitehead. Everybody expected him to come in and sort of be the guy that he was during those Super Bowl years and the Tom Brady years with the Buccaneers, and he absolutely was not. He was on and off the field. I know he was in a tragic car accident later in the season towards the playoffs, and, thoughts with him on that. And I know you can't control things like that, but that's something we kind of talked about earlier, too, with Tyke Smith and the text on the Bartow 4DA text line about Tyke Smith maybe moving down to corner. That's what you got to decide this offseason is what kind of personnel you're going to bring in. Are you going to bring in another corner to add depth to that corner backfield so you don't have to put Tyke Smith in the slot and you can keep him at safety? Ultimately, if you bring in more corners and you're comfortable at that position, I would feel 100% comfortable with Antoine Winfield Jr. and Tyke Smith as my 2 safeties. I don't know about you, Chris, but having both of them at safety for the future, that's two of the better safeties in the league at their age.
I'm very much okay with that. If they can stay healthy,
yeah.
I mean, those are 2 guys that understand the defense. We saw Tyke Smith pick up really quick in Todd Bowles' defense, take advantage of reps. He just dealt with a couple of injuries, and Antoine Winfield Jr., the same thing. This is a guy who's proven himself enough to be paid like a top, if not the top safety in the NFL. He didn't play a lot of games this year, was banged up for majority of the season. When he did play, it felt as if he was still battling through the injury because he did not play Antoine Winfield Jr. football. He did not play up to that pedigree. It was disappointing. If you can have Smith and Winfield playing on the same field at the same time, 15, 16, 17 games, you got to like where this team is at. I understand where we were getting there with the call, but I don't think that that's a position I'd rather see them address in the draft over a corner, a true corner, a pass rusher, and I'd go linebacker over the next safety, honestly. If Tyke Smith were healthy, that'd be the way I'd go.
Yeah, it just simply can't be a top priority. But hey, it's a good thought, That's why I said, hook up your Xbox, your PlayStation, play some Madden, and make those moves yourself in the offseason. And ultimately, you can put yourself in Jason Light's shoes.
Yeah, let's see what happens there. We'll see if you're able to make any trades or... It's a lot tougher than people think. It's not very easy. They still decline trades on those video games, man.
Of course.
They do.
Of course.
But we'll continue to discuss the NFL playoffs this afternoon with you guys as we do have a pair of big games today. We've got the Houston Texans at Kansas City Chiefs, AFC divisional round. Very excited about this. We got a spread of 9.5. Kansas City, a 9.5-point favorite, a 4:30 kickoff in Kansas City. Casey, let's pick this game.
Yeah, let's pick this game indeed. And I talked about it last week, talked about it on Pat and Aaron yesterday. Still, kind of a long shot. I had the Rams and the Texans as my Super Bowl matchup at the beginning of the season. And I was kind of hoping, and it's still a chance that it could happen. So with that being said, I'm going to pick the Houston Texans to cover in this matchup. I don't think they'll necessarily win. I'm not by any means putting any cheddar on them to win, but I do think Houston can cover. And I think why they can cover is I think C.J. Stroud knows that he has a lot to prove in this game. He had a very down season in his sophomore season for the Texans. He did not look as good as he did at all last year, and he's got a lot to prove in this game. Joe Mixon has been banged up, and it's going to take everything from that offense to compete with Patrick Mahomes. He's undefeated in the divisional round in his career. We know what he does when he gets to the playoffs. I'm by no means picking the Texans to win this game, but I'm going to pick the Texans to cover that 9.5-point spread.
I will say this. I do not expect the Texans to win this game. I don't think there's really any chance. Of course, there's a possibility, but I'm steering far away from that. I also agree with you, though, as far as the spread goes. I think the Texans cover the 9.5 points, but Kansas City wins the game, and it might be by 7. Either way, I think the Chiefs' offense is too strong for that Texans defense, which is very good. But most of all, that crowd is going to play a huge part in the game this afternoon. We all know how crazy games are there at Arrowhead Stadium. We all know about the faithful fans in Kansas City. And more importantly, it comes down to Patrick Mahomes and his chemistry with a guy like Travis Kelce. Even though Kelce hasn't had a very good year this season, I think we see a very big game from Travis Kelce. We'll have more on some player props later on in the program as well. So I'm taking the Chiefs to win the game, Houston to cover the spread. Now tonight's big matchup features a team that just took care of the Buccaneers last Sunday and the Washington Commanders playing in Detroit against the Lions. Another hefty spread. The Lions 8.5-point home favorites there in Motown.
Yeah, and just like I said with the Texans and Kansas City, I'm really thinking a lot of these road teams, in fact, all 4 of the road teams I'm taking to cover this week in the NFL playoffs. I really think Jaden Daniels is something that's a nightmare for a guy like Aaron Glenn to game plan for. Ultimately, I think Detroit comes out on top of this one, but Jaden Daniels is going to make things very interesting. Next segment, there's an interesting player prop I got on Jaden Daniels that I'm really keying in on tonight. I really can't wait for this game. I mean, this is going to be an absolute war. I think with the injuries on the Detroit defense, that's going to be sort of a challenge, like I said, for Aaron Glenn to game plan with Jaden Daniels and Terry McLaurin coming to town. I really think we saw what was the beginning of something special for this Washington team last weekend here in Tampa. They made the big plays when they needed them. Obviously a banged up, not great Bucs defense, but they can take advantage of another banged up, not so great defense in the Detroit Lions, who are missing so many guys, and it all is going to come down to how Jaden Daniels executes in his second ever playoff game, and ultimately I think they cover, not to win, but Washington covers the spread.
Yeah, Detroit Lions, they've been very banged up here down the stretch. It's been frustrating to see a team that did have all the potential in the world to go out and win it all, and here they are dealing with a banged up defense, a roster that's not ready to rock, but they know how to win games simply because they've been there, they've done that. They haven't been this far. They haven't been in a position to be able to say, hey, this team will go out there and win it all. I think they still very well could. I mean, the story sets up for them to do so, surprise some people. What more do the Lions need than people that are doubting them because of a injured roster? The spread too high for me. Lions win the game. I think Commanders cover the spread. I'm thinking a probably 5-6 point game here. That'll be the outcome of this one in Detroit. 8 o'clock kickoff. Really excited for this. But tomorrow's games, I think, intrigue me even more, Casey. We're looking at the Rams at Eagles tomorrow, 3 o'clock kickoff. Eagles, 6.5 point favorite at home.
Yeah, and I talked about the weather a little bit earlier. Right now, mid-30s the temps, 90% chance of snow. The Rams playing in an indoor stadium. Rams being in SoCal. A lot of people questioning whether they can handle that weather. A Philadelphia team that's been rolling all season long. Sean McVay has once again shown in the last 2 months why he's an elite head coach, one of the best head coaches in this league, and that's what I think he does yet again this week. I think the Rams cover that 6.5. This is a very close game. This is honestly, I think, probably going to be the game of the week out of all of these, even over Baltimore and Buffalo. I think this game is going to be everything you want it to be in an NFL playoff fight. I got the Rams to cover. Whether they win or not, I didn't say if they were going to win yesterday. I think they're going to win this game. I'm going to go ahead and say it today. They're going to win and cover. Sean McVay's going to get it done. Matthew Stafford's going to show why he's still got some left in the tank, and he's a future Hall of Famer. Give me the Rams to win and cover this one.
Impressive. I mean, we'll see if you're right. That is very hot. Man. That is bold, but that's what we're doing here on Saturdays. It is Chris and Casey. We're each and every Saturday from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. on WDAE. although I don't think the Eagles win it all, although I don't believe in their chemistry, we saw A.J. Brown reading a book on the sidelines last week. I don't care what he says. I don't care what the book was about. That's unbelievable to me. I feel as if we've seen some comments throughout the season regarding this team, some discrepancies between the head coach, the quarterback, or receiver. At some point, they are going to fall. I don't think that happens this week, Casey. I'm sorry. I'm taking the Eagles to win this game, and I do think they cover over the Rams. Even though the Rams put up a good fight, I'm taking the Eagles to win and cover. Now, the big game that majority of people are talking about this weekend, we've got the Baltimore Ravens taking on the Bills in Buffalo, a matchup of two of the best quarterbacks in the league, Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen. The Bills are a 1-point underdog at home. What are your thoughts on this one?
Lamar Jackson has maybe played his way to being the MVP this season in the last couple weeks. Everybody thought it was Josh Allen, and now it's sort of a toss-up, Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson. I think this is Lamar Jackson's season. I've been hearing him talk about all season long how he's going to change his number to number 1 if he makes it to the Super Bowl and wins, and I think that's something you can't say if you don't have a really good feeling about how you're playing, and I think he does. Derrick Henry was the perfect addition to that offense. I don't think the Bills can stop him and Lamar Jackson. Zay Flowers still questionable to play in this one. I don't think they need him either way. I think Lamar Jackson makes all the plays he needs to. It's going to be a high-scoring shootout game, but Baltimore comes out on top in snowy Buffalo.
I'm worried about the weather. I think both teams can still put up some points because of the ground game. Maybe a couple of more turnovers here than what you'd expect between Lamar Jackson, a guy who only has 4 interceptions on the year, and Josh Allen, who has 6 picks on this season. I will take Josh Allen and the Bills to win this game. It's a home game. It's the playoffs. We already know just how much of a home field advantage you get there in Buffalo. But the fact that it's snowy, it's going to have a wintry mix, it's cold. Josh Allen all time, 14-2 in freezing weather all time. And also, for whatever it's worth, the Baltimore Ravens, their color combination they're wearing tomorrow night, they're 0-2 in the playoffs wearing that color combo. So I know you can't put a lot in that, but there is some stock to be had there. I will take the Bills to win the game. They're the 1-point dog tomorrow night. Now, Monday's game, the national championship, we discussed throughout this entire program. If you've missed any of it, check out the free, commercial-free app, the iHeartRadio app. Search up DAE On Demand. Ohio State against Notre Dame. Ohio State and the Buckeyes, 8.5-point favorites on Monday night.
I simply just can't keep betting against the Ohio State Buckeyes. I can't keep picking against them. There's no way I can do it again. I've done it far too many times this season. I've done it every round of the college football playoff. They proved me wrong against Oregon. They proved me wrong in the first round against Tennessee. And I think they're going to prove me wrong if I pick against them again against Notre Dame. I just don't think Riley Leonard is the quarterback that Will Howard is. I think Ryan Day knew that he was coaching for possibly his job going into this playoff, and he has absolutely out-game planned everybody he has matched up against in this college football playoff. Ohio State covers. I think they could even win by 2 touchdowns. I hope it's a better game than that, but I think Ohio State covers this one. They are just absolutely rolling.
Oh, man, I want to be able to say Notre Dame wins this game. I just don't think there's a possibility it happens. We all know that technically speaking there is, but it's not probable. Notre Dame is a very good team. I feel like Ohio State is just ready. I mean, they feel more
Locked
ready.
in.
They feel more like they've been more battle-tested, too, to get to this point. I'm going to take Ohio State to win the game, but I will say this. I think Notre Dame covers that 8.5-point spread as of now ahead of Monday's national championship game. You guys can chime in on the Bartow Ford DAE text line with your picks, 82945. Start your text with DAE. We're gambling men. We talk about it here each and every week. Casey, you do a great job on social media putting up a weekly video of your player prop picks. We're going to talk about some playoff player prop picks for you guys to place some cheddar on starting today with our NFL playoff matchups today, tomorrow.
WDAE and AM 620.
Welcome back, 95.3 WDAE. Chris and Casey show here on a Saturday afternoon. What's up, Tampa Bay? Chris Mathis, Casey Warner here with you. One final segment. We have the NFL playoffs in full swing, divisional round weekend kicking off at 4:30 today. And then, of course, at 8 o'clock tonight, you have the Washington Commanders and the Detroit Lions. Tampa Bay Buccaneers knocked out by the Washington Commanders last weekend on Super Wild Card Weekend. And we will wrap up today's show with our best player playoff props, courtesy of the Hard Rock Sports Bet app. I'm feeling pretty good about these 4 picks right here. You can text us on the Bartow Ford DAE text line 82945. And we still got time for a little bit of calls to 888-546-4620. Just a little bit of time here on Chris and Casey. And I'll go ahead and give you my best player props for this weekend in the divisional round, starting with Houston at Kansas City tonight. I do think Kansas City is going to lead most of this game. They have more experience. Patrick Mahomes has never lost a game in the divisional round. That being said, Houston has to come out firing. They have to come out and be aggressive. CJ Stroud has to have a good game. He's been in a sophomore slump. And currently on the Hard Rock Bet app, the over-under is 225.5 passing yards for CJ Stroud. I'm taking the over all day on that. I think he's going to have to go out there and pass almost every down if they're going to be behind in this game. What say you, Chris?
I'll also take the over there. I think that he easily throws for probably 250 in this game. He's going to have to. Now, I know that the environment is not going to be in favor of him. It's not going to be very fun for him to play in. However, this guy is a gamer. His second year hasn't been quite what he hoped for or expected. I will say that I think that not only will he have a pretty decent game today, not good enough to win, but I think he's going to have quite a number of yards here today.
And to beat Patrick Mahomes, you got to play with Patrick Mahomes. You got to make the big plays like Patrick Mahomes. You got to throw like Patrick Mahomes does. And so I think CJ Stroud is ultimately going to do that today. He might not win, but I think it's going to be a close game. Next up, we got Washington at Detroit. Commanders heading to Detroit on a large spread there. And Jaden Daniels is ultimately who got to the Bucs last weekend. The first week 1 matchup, the Bucs won that one, but the Commanders knocked the Bucs out of the playoffs in Super Wild Card Weekend. And this one, I said when we made our picks, I think that the Commanders cover this spread. And in order for that to happen, Jaden Daniels is going to have to continue to be a nightmare to game plan against for Aaron Glenn and that banged up Lions defense. I think he runs all over them. The over-under on the Hard Rock app is currently 55.5 for Jaden Daniels rushing yards. I think he hits that over. I think he's going to be elusive. He's going to get out of the pocket. There's no Aiden Hutchinson there in Detroit to get the sacks that they need to compete with Jaden Daniels. I think this is a bit of a high-scoring game, and Jaden Daniels makes plenty of plays with his legs to hit that over of 55.5.
He's going to have to. If they want to not only compete in this game, but maybe have a chance to win this game at Detroit, it's going to come down to him being able to do so. I know we've knocked out the first 2 games that are taking place today with your player props. Here are mine from the Chiefs game as they will take on the Texans. I like Travis Kelce over 54.5 receiving yards today. I know he hasn't lived up to the expectation this year. Is he distracted from Taylor Swift, or is he simply just getting older? I think it's a combination of both. More so of the fact he's getting older. But we all know when Patrick Mahomes needs to play, it doesn't matter how old Travis Kelce is, he's feeding him the ball. And if this game gets into an aerial attack where it's just blow for blow through the air trying to move the ball down the field, which I think Houston's going to have to do. That's why Jaden Daniels will go over. I think Travis Kelce will have over 54.5 receiving yards. Now, Jared Goff's line on the Prize Picks app is set at 2.5 passing touchdowns.
2.5.
2.5.
Wow. Okay.
I will say hit more on that. Go over 2.5 passing touchdowns for Jared Goff against Washington tonight. I think that we saw enough last week. I think the Lions are ready to rock against this Commanders defense. I'm going over. I mean, that's not a very good defense to start with. I think Jared Goff, a seasoned guy at home, will throw for at least 3 touchdowns tonight.
All right, so you're taking Travis Kelce and Jared Goff. I am taking CJ Stroud and Jaden Daniels for our player props. Let's move on to Sunday. Sunday will begin with the Los Angeles Rams heading to Philadelphia in what's going to be a cold, possibly wintry matchup. And that one, 90% chance of snow is what I saw when I checked the weather this morning in Philadelphia. And Jalen Hurts has been banged up the last couple of weeks. He only threw for, I believe, between 80 and 90 pass yards last week against the Packers. That was not an offensive game, didn't need it to be an offensive game to defeat the Packers. The Packers banged up as well. And I think Jalen Hurts, his current over-under on the Hard Rock app is 205.5 passing yards. I think he goes under there. I think we have been very, very surprised, all of us who are NFL fans, by this Rams defense, this young, hungry Rams defensive line, two guys from Florida State that people know, football fans in the state know very well, Jared Verse, Braden Fisk. I believe they get to Jalen Hurts again. I think they do what they've done all season. They give the ball to Saquon Barkley. Saquon Barkley went for a franchise record 255 yards against the Rams in L.A. earlier this season. It's not going to be that easy. This time around, I think Saquon has another big game, not quite 200 yards. So that means I think Jalen Hurts takes a lot of the load off in the passing game. He doesn't have that many pass attempts or passing yards. Under all day for Jalen Hurts. What are you going with in this game?
For me, I like A.J. Brown over half a touchdown. I think he is going to score a touchdown. I don't think he has a huge game, but I do think A.J. Brown will try to prove all of the doubters wrong, and he's got to be there for Jalen Hurts. If they want to obviously cover the spread today, or I should say tomorrow in that game against the Rams, they're going to have to rely on a passing attack on occasion because you run the football to open up the passing game. I think they're going to try to do that. Once the run game doesn't work quite like they thought with Saquon, they're going to throw it through the air. They might even be trailing at some point in this game against the Rams. I think Jalen Hurts will find A.J. Brown for at least one touchdown tomorrow.
All right, A.J. Brown for Chris Mathis and Jalen Hurts under for me. So we'll go to our last game of the weekend. That is on Sunday evening. That is Baltimore Ravens at Buffalo Bills. Very tight spread in that one. We made our picks, and here's my player prop pick for that game. I'm going to have to go with Khalil Shakir, his over in receiving yards. And currently on the Hard Rock Bet app, it is 54.5. I'm going to have to go over. I look back to when the Buffalo Bills played the Baltimore Ravens in Baltimore way earlier in the season, back in September. Khalil Shakir had 4 catches for 62 yards. I'm thinking a very similar game to that if he doesn't hit 100. I'm thinking at least 4 to 5 catches, around 75 to 100 yards. Khalil Shakir has shown why he's been Josh Allen's favorite target this season. He's been the most consistent. Keon Coleman has been injured on and off. Dalton Kincaid has been injured on and off. Josh Allen can make plays with his legs. We know how he can throw the ball. He's going to be getting the ball all day to Khalil Shakir. Absolutely hit the over on 54.5 receiving yards, Khalil Shakir.
And my pick for tomorrow night's game, I like the under of pass attempts for Josh Allen on the Prize Picks app. That's under 32.5 pass attempts.
All right.
For Josh Allen against the Ravens. Number 1, you got a really good Ravens defense. Number 2, it's going to be bad weather. 3, Josh Allen is going to do what he does best, and that's take off with the football when you don't expect them to. I'm taking the under of 32.5 pass attempts there in that game. Use code Mathis on the Prize Pick apps. After you use your first $5 lineup, get $50 for free. That's Chris and Casey here on this Saturday. Appreciate you guys joining us. It is show number 3 officially in the books, Casey.
That's right, yeah. It's been a pleasure.